Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV for the 7th round of V8SCOPS for 2026. A track that is making its first appearance on the V8SCOPS calendar, but one that I think is going to suit these Gen 3 supercars very well here on the iRacing service. It's Portland International Raceway, a short circuit dominated by straights, a little bit of technical shenanigans going on in the first couple of sectors, but elsewhere it's all about power, all about speed, and hard braking into that first chicane. It's going to be a fantastic night of racing, and we're glad to bring it to you here on SimSpeed, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. It's me, Reese Gardner, and it's him, David Haynes, alongside me in the commentary box. Jay Kennedy is sitting in the producer's chair bringing you these live pictures. David, I think I say this about a lot of rounds of V8SCOPS generally, but I have been looking forward to Portland ever since the 2026 schedule was announced. Its first appearance, as I said, and yeah, I'm honestly hyped. I think it's going to suit these cars very well.
I keep saying, to no agreement, that it's kind of like Townsville. You've got a really long front straight, a couple of tight sections, chicanes where the walls are close, then some other parts that are a little bit more open up where there's grass, the walls are further away, and it's not a massively long lap, and often that creates some pretty good racing in these cars. Other tracks that we've gone to of a similar length, like Mosport or Oran Park, can get pretty exciting.
They certainly can. Short tracks of about a minute to a minute and 10 seconds in length are the bread and butter of this category. Looking at the 2026 schedule for the moment, we only have 2 regular rounds of the season left after this one, going to Winton and Circuit of the Americas in July and August. Then we're going into the Enduros, 500Ks at the Bend, West layout, new for this year to reflect real-life championship usage, Sandown 500, and then Mount Panorama, the Bathurst 1000, before we end things off for round 13 at the Adelaide Street Circuit in November. Who's who of fantastic circuits on iRacing. And looking at that weather radar, we are expecting some rain. It's cool out there on the track today for Split 2 action, which is just about to get going. But yeah, Portland is a circuit that is very near and dear to my heart. I've told some that it is just about my favorite track in the United States, and you know, obviously there's some pretty stiff competition for that. Watkins Glen, Road America, VIR, but I love Portland for its sheer simplicity. It's located on the former site of the city of Vanport, a city that was built largely to house workers during the Great Depression, but a flood in the 1940s demolished most of the city. And then local car clubs decided, hey, why don't we put some of these roads together and make a racetrack? And that's basically how Portland International Raceway was conceived. The start-finish straight and the back stretch between turns 8 and 9 used to be public roads. And if you look in between turns 7 and 8, that little sort of junction of roads there, that used to be a part of the circuit. It's quite an interesting story. behind the development of this racetrack. But yeah, as you said, David, it is very reminiscent of some circuits here in Australia. Lots of twisties, but a couple of long blasts where these cars can really stretch their legs.
Thank you for that rapidly serious track guide, and where they can stretch their legs is from turn 7 all the way down to a super fast committed chicane at turns 9 and 10 there, and then 1 and 2, the road is wide, but the turns are tight and they sort of cancel each other out, and it's a real pinch point on race starts, restarts, or just any battle down that front straight. That's why all the grandstands are looking at that turn 1, 2, 3 chicane, because odds are that's where some of the action's going to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially considering these cars love big curbs. They love that curb hopping vibe, and you're going to get plenty of that through the first chicane here. We're keeping an eye out on split 2 for the moment. 10 minutes to go in the practice session before our 29-lap single race on board for a lap here with Kurt Stenberg. Across the start-finish line he comes, and the brake markers come up on the left, and these are those festival turns that you were talking about, David. Very wide through here. You're running across concrete, and it's really difficult through turn 1 to actually nail that line and keep the traction going before you get into the far end of this circuit. A triple apex right-hander technically counts as 2 separate corners, but FIA standard sawtooth curbing around here is definitely well usable, but keeping the weight on the fronts is crucial in this section of the circuit, especially if you want a good exit down this back stretch, this really wide entry into turn 7.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes it really tempts a following driver to try to get down the inside, because there'll always be a car width to the inside when the road is that wide. But again, a tight corner that you really want to set up a late apex for this long straight. Approaching the chicane here, where Stenberg's going to go down 2 gears and then really try to monster those curbs to open it up. Use all of the road going into the final corner. That is a pretty nasty ride over that curve. So that's kind of how this circuit works out. It's got some fast straights, some multi-apex corners, a couple of corners where you've really got to focus the exit for the ride onto the long straight. But man, you've got to ride those curbs well as well. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. Always love a track where you have to use the curbs to get a fast time. That's Kurt Stenberg done with that particular lap. And we'll switch over to Dean Logsdale in car number 9 here in the LMV SimRacing RSW Graphics Mustang. Get a bit of an external view of these corners. And one of the things that I wanted to point out about that chicane at the end of the lap at turns 9 and 10, you may have noticed it during that onboard with Stenberg, how bumpy that braking zone is. As you said, incredibly high commitment, but it's really easy to lock the brakes into there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the series that I'm most used to seeing around here, IndyCar, they get to carry a lot of speed through there, but these are not a Dallara single-seater with gigantic wings on, so it is more of a braking zone for these cars at that speed, braking, going down 2 gear shifts and then trying to manage that change of direction, the big weight shift that you get going from a left-hander into a right-hander in these cars versus a very stiffly sprung, very low center of gravity and much lighter Indy car. So this is a car that we know everywhere we go is very good at making mountains out of molehills as far as making corners challenging with the speed that they approach and the deceleration that you need to navigate this thing through.
Yeah, 1.5 tons in weight, these cars, and putting a lot of power through the rear wheels. Seb Tixier putting enough power down to get the top time in the practice session thus far. Seb, always a competitor up the top in split 2, and looking forward to seeing what he can do here today. It seems that the drivers like Tixier seem to suit this track very well. It's one of those circuits where, again, you have to keep the weight on the fronts, look after those front tires, because God knows you're going to need them later on in the race. But with that rain approaching, very light, admittedly, that might produce a few extra wrinkles in this problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, it's a really odd little bit of rain on the radar. Some people will see the presence of any rain on the radar and freak out. And I've long pointed out that actually it takes a bit of rain before it's even noticeable. It takes a little bit more rain before slick tyres and wet tyres are equal on pace. And then it takes even more rain for the track to be wet enough that wet tyres will earn back the pit stop time it requires to put them on. So it's a very light sprinkling out there, and that tracks because I would call Portland the Fitzroy or Brunswick of the Pacific Northwest. Very Melbourne weather here. Cloudy very often, but rarely actually heavy rain.
Yeah, indeed.
And every barber has a mustache.
Yeah, absolutely. Portland, one of the more cosmopolitan or hipster, I suppose you could say, cities in America, notoriously, but has a fairly significant motorsport history. Portland International Raceway has been around since the 1960s and has been through a few changes over the years, including conversion to a fully permanent racetrack. But yeah, we've really seen a who's who of drivers race at this track over the years. Drivers like Mario Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, and the like. Nigel Mansell raced here in IndyCars in the early 1990s as well. And you go forward to today's legends. You know, NASCAR isn't going to Portland this year, and we're not sure if it's going to be coming back. But one of the last times that NASCAR did race here, Shane Van Gisbergen absolutely cleaned up in the second category.
You've missed the biggest name that's ever raced here at Portland International Raceway.
And that is?
Jack Perkins in NASCAR Xfinity Series, as it was known at the time.
Yes, indeed. Had quite a few of our homegrown heroes making the trek over to North America to race in NASCAR here. Stenberg going to the top of practice now, bringing it below 1 minute 13, along with Seb Tixier. Let's see if Seb's going to respond on this lap. Of course, this isn't a qualifying session. This is only pre-event warm-up. The grid has already been set by pre-qualifying times. Seb running a 1:13.9 on that particular lap, and I think he got an off-track on the way around, so doesn't officially count. But it's good to see for the moment what the pace is like, and that is one of the pitfalls of Portland. The exit of turn 3 there. The track really narrows up on the exit. It's so easy to put a wheel into the grass.
I was going to say, we were kind of pointing it out, the track width varies a lot around here. So the front straight is wide, good. Turns 1 and 2 are wide, good. But then you come out of turn 3 and suddenly it's a more old school, narrow track, and remains so through quite a few of these corners until it opens up on the way into turn 7, closing back down again. And then you go through sort of 9, chicane at 10 and 11, the final corner at 12. And as you exit 12, it opens up again. The front straight is wider than the rest, just like, say it with me, Okayama.
Oh, yes, Okayama indeed. Pretty similar weather, I'd say, in Japan to Portland as well. Definitely sees a lot of moisture. Speaking of which, we're seeing those patches of rain start to come down in the final 2 minutes of the practice session. So the drivers will need to keep an eye out for how much that moistens up the racetrack. This is turn 7, the exit of that sort of infield twisty section onto the back stretch, which used to be public roads. And, well, if I keep an eye on the info tab here, it looks like a fairly significant patch of light rain on its way, but the track itself is still pretty dry. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that rain affect the grip levels and the pace too much until maybe a couple of laps into the race. So we're hearing in the background from Jay, there is a 30-minute time gap between this warm-up session and the race start. So there's potential for that rain to have completely passed by the time the service switches over to the race session. So yeah, I think all of these drivers are going to be going in pretty much blind as to how wet the track's going to be, if at all.
Yeah, so we're looking right now at a warm-up session that's going from dry to lightly wet, but with the doing the time warp, we could end up with a race that starts lightly wet and then dries as it goes on. Very, very interesting. Lachlan Pryke must have eaten like a bacon sandwich before setting up his camera. But it's good to have him. Like, it's good to have him, though.
Yeah, a bit of Vaseline on the lens. He's going for that dreamy film look. Sky is grey and rain is falling, but this track is still dry for the moment. We're going to go over quickly the race information here. A 29-lap race, as I said. With a 45% fuel tank restriction, the drivers won't be able to get to the end on the fuel that they start with, so there is one compulsory pit stop. You will have to get fuel, and you'll almost certainly have to change tyres, especially depending on how the weather goes. Grid, of course, being set by pre-qualifying order, and the grid is just about ready to go. We'll see who starts on pole position. It's going to be Cameron Gerety in car number 011. He's going to be sharing the front row with Liam Milner from Momentum Racing. Roy Clark in car 21 has got Sean van der Meulen for company on row number 2. And then it's Craig Bond and Seb Tixier who round out the top 6. Dean Logsdale, racing under the flag of England, is going to be starting in 7th alongside Trent Bennett. Then it's Lachlan Pryke and Jaden Green who round out your top 10.
Our truncated split 2 field continues with Ryan Nielsen and Brandon Levin. Then Scott McKenzie is 13th on the grid. Andrew Ritchie is 14th. Kurt Stenberg, perhaps a little bit of surprise here from 15th. That's got to be my driver to watch. And Ben Smith in 16th on this grid. Vincent Skilbeck in 17th. Harry Dodds in 18th, and the last driver is Steve Vella in 19th. We got 2 safety cars, and I would have said, not a whole lot of chance of seeing them. And then the rain started coming down, so maybe.
Maybe indeed. We are in the middle of that patch of rain right now, but the track is still considered very lightly wet by the sim. It's still technically dry tyre weather, but we're seeing the majority of the field go for wets, it seems.
I'm only 50.
Really? My timing is obviously not showing me the correct tyres then.
I've got Gerety on pole on wets, 2nd and 3rd on slicks, Van der Meulen 4th on wets, Craig Bond in 5th on wets. I see differently to our on-screen graphics.
Yeah.
Okay, trust Jay before you trust me, but don't completely trust him.
Yeah, well, my timing matches what we're seeing here. Majority of the field going for wet tyres, but I think we're going to be seeing some big jumps from Roy Clark, Seb Tixier and Steve Vella as the lights go up, and so do the revs. Start of Split 2, V8SCOPS here at Portland is go, and unfortunately, Roy Clark goes absolutely nowhere on that initial start. There's plenty of spray being thrown up, but I still get the feeling it's not quite wet tyre weather yet. We'll have to wait and see what the grip's like for everybody as they make their way through turns 1 and 2 for the first time. Oh dear, that's a spin. That's going to be Dean Logsdale, turned around by Seb Tixier at the second corner. Has created a bit of chaos and a lot of big drops from further down in the field. But Cameron Gerety still leading the way by only just from Liam Milner. We're seeing Craig Bond and Sean van der Meulen join them there. Lachlan Pryke, Ryan Nielsen and Kurt Stenberg round out your top 8 with Roy Clark, the leading car on dry tyres.
The intensity of the rain is still very, very mild, but it's been coming down for 15 to 20 minutes now, so there is a bit of a sheen on the road. I think slick tyres, if you can get some temperature into them, will still service you well, but I don't think they were easy at all to drive on that getaway.
Yeah, I mean, starting to change my opinions here. You can see just how much drivers are struggling for traction out of these acceleration zones, and there is quite a bit of spray being thrown up. So yeah, I mean, you'd have to worry about the warm-up period for the slicks, but the wets are able to switch on right away, and our slick tire runners, all 3 of them, have not really made much progress as things stand. Roy Clark is down 6 spots. Steve Vella's gained 6, but Seb Tixier, largely due to the incident at turn 2, has fallen down the order even further now. He's back to 16th as lap 2 begins, and there's quite a nice view from the back of Liam Milner of this side-by-side. Sean van der Meulen trying to get the run on Craig Bond, but it doesn't quite work out when the track narrows up. Oh, yep. Starting to go off Cameron Gerrity. He's gone off the circuit, and Liam Milner moves to the lead.
Wow, so an ambitious look to the inside, and Cameron Gerrity, I think, was looking at his mirrors as Milner was coming, and it's just bowled wide through that challenging triple apex right-hander.
Yeah, as we said yeah, no, I didn't see any either. As we said in warm-up, it's very narrow in that section of the circuit, and so you've got to be pinpoint perfect on your inputs to have any chance of staying on the road there. So hopefully Gerrity can make some kind of recovery here. He may have to wait for the pit stop to potentially get that done. Look at how much more momentum Milner had out of the first chicane. He had a look, and looked like the rears locked up a little bit there for Cameron Gerrity. So that's part of the reason why he went off. Potentially got a bit spooked as well. Van der Meulen with a big bit of oversteer through the final proper corner here, and that gives the door wide open for Lachlan Pryke, who moves on through. Looks like they'll be joined by Ryan Nielsen in the Banter Alliance Mustang. This is going to be close on the way down to turn 1. How close do they run it to that guardrail on the inside, all the way across the curb? They avoid managing to make contact with that. Kurt Stenberg with the fastest lap of the race so far. I mean, you expected Stenny to move forward, David, and that's exactly what he's done.
Expected him to move a little laterally sideways as well. What a challenging corner that is there at turn 4 now.
There's no grip out there. Van der Meulen very wide, and that's Gerrity, who's lost the rear end again through there. Got to be so careful with the curbs and the white line. They're a lot greasier in these wet conditions. Jaden Green started from the pits, and it looks like he's already trying to make some moves forward. Now holds that fastest lap. Seb Tixier coming into the pits, and it looks like he's decided the slick tyres are no longer worth using. He's going to be sticking to the wets from now on.
The rain is sticking with us as well, so the track is not getting drier. And the spray there is significant as they try to settle into single file going into the chicane. They'll have to do the same a little bit further back around Trent Bennett, Roy Clark, Ben Smith.
Yeah, this is a very tight fight here, battling for 10th spot. And this is very difficult runnings here as around goes Roy Clark, and it looks like Trent Bennett's going to go with him. That's unfortunate for the two Mustangs, but there's plenty of runoff in this back section of the circuit, so no further damage taken there. Fastest lap seems to be what everyone wants at the moment. Now it goes to Lachlan Pryke running in 2nd spot, but the battle once again is right behind them. Ryan Nielsen trying to get up the inside of Craig Bond here, but Craig managing to position his car very well here. He's going to protect the inside line for the left-hander, or at least try to. Widens up quite a bit here. This particular part of the circuit is the newest part. It was reprofiled in 2007 to give us this hairpin here, which really provides a lot of room to get a move up the inside. Great racing here between these two Mustangs. Nielsen and Bond really putting on a show. But Kurt Stenberg with a front row seat to it. He wants to get on stage with them.
Momentum around the outside seems to be the way to go here. Gives you the inside into the chicane, and you do just need to settle it single file most of the time.
Well, crossed up over those curbs. They're very harsh curbs here, FIA spec progressive curbs, but they are quite rough. The saw teeth, so to speak, of these curbs a bit higher than you'd expect, and they really do a number on the tyres if you get them wrong. Defending the position is Craig Bond. Contact with Ryan Nielsen on the way into turn 1, and Kurt Stenberg, well, he's looking for a manoeuvre through here, but one is not presenting itself. And Van der Meulen and Gerrity, who've managed to get some momentum going themselves, starting to close in.
Track is not getting any drier. Roy Clark had been nudged off the road earlier. He's gotten going, and then he hasn't.
Yeah, he's one of the drivers still running the slick tyre, and this is the unfortunate consequence of being on the quote-unquote wrong tyre for the conditions. You can obviously jump in at any point after the end of lap 2. in order to take your mandatory pit stop, but you stand a chance of losing out on track position, and it may indeed set you back. You want to try and get some momentum going early on in the first stint, but that opportunity will not present itself for Tixier, Vela or Clark, who have now all jumped into the pits and will all be switching back to the wets.
I think a little bit more water is beginning to hold in those curves as well. The rain intensity has stayed light, but it has been continuous. The measure of the amount of water on the track has gone up in the last minute or so.
Yes, and Kurt Stenberg knows it. He'll be trying to take advantage of any lack of pace from Ryan Nielsen here, as that was quite slow through turns 1 and 2 for Sean van der Meulen. It looked like he might have run deep at turn 1 and just recovered on the inside of 2, and that's changed the position between himself and Cameron Gerrity. Our pole setup now back to P7, on board with van der Meulen on the replay, and yeah, he was just too deep. You want to... Oh, actually, hang on, he managed to make the apex, but caught the bumps on the curb on the inside of turn 1. Haven't seen anyone do that yet.
I think that's the challenge of the track becoming wetter, the curbs becoming even more slippery. So Dodds here in 8th place. Roy Clark, having made that pit stop, basically went a whole lap down. I saw him in the grass, but I think he was just letting the leaders by. Is that Bond, Nielsen and Stenberg almost going to make some contact up the road as well? So much great battling.
Yeah, fantastic fighting here in these conditions. Harry Dodds forced defensive into turn 9 as Benjamin Smith rounds him round the outside and grabs the position in style through that fast chicane. Dodds will try to fight back, but he's going to have to focus on the exit of this final corner. That's the best way to respond. Bit of oversteer from the car that just passed him. This is the battle you were talking about, David, as we get news of Seb Tixier getting a 10-second penalty for his contact with Dean Logsdale at the opening corners. What a nice run out of turn 2 that was for Ryan Nielsen, but he can't take advantage. Craig Bond is putting his car in all the right places.
So where the grip is, I think, is changing as the rain continues to fall. We began, you just take the normal dry line, but now I think the grip is starting to emerge in some slightly different places.
Yes, you can see that Bond and Nielsen both switching to that sort of wider line through the left-hander, and Stenberg still searching for his own bit of real estate out here. Straighten the car up as soon as you can out of that hairpin, and you feel the benefits all the way down this back stretch, this curved back stretch where the concrete wall on the right seems to suck you in as you approach the braking zone. Defensive now for Ryan Nielsen, and that's not going to present an opportunity to Stenny. He's going to have to wait another few corners or so for another chance at a move, or maybe he can get one done here. A little bit closer to the apex, but you see how little grip there is on that inside line. Bond and Nielsen are just driving away from him out of that corner.
It's almost a bit like the final sector of Hockenheimring. You've got the rubber that gets laid down by the drag racing becomes so slippery once there's water on it, because it forms almost an impervious barrier of rubber on top of the pavement that the water can't get in, can't fill in any little crevices.
Stenny now alongside Ryan Nielsen. A bad run out of turn 2 there for the Banter Alliance Mustang, and the Trans-Tasman Camaro is going to move up into 5th position. That's one more spot gained for Stenny, up 11 spots up now, and well, he's got some good pace here, may be able to challenge for the podium in the later stages if he can avoid losing too much time to Craig Bond here. Remember, the top 3 get that golden ticket, the chance to race in Split 1 later on tonight, and Kurt Stenberg, we don't usually see him in Split 2, so he's going to try and race his way into the main game tonight.
Thinking back to when we saw one of the other drivers sort of just go straight around the outside at the end of that long back straight, and I wonder if some of these drivers aren't just a little short on the gears. Was that someone running out of revs in 6th gear? Something to keep an eye on, and I thought I saw in this battle the drivers sort of pulling a little differently down the back straight, and that is something that is open to the drivers. Oh, Stenberg's in so deep.
Oh, too deep, and that's going to open the door once again for Ryan Nielsen, but Stenny protecting the inside through turn 3, contact on the way out of it. And Nielsen has to get on the stop pedal there to avoid getting run off the road. Stenny not entirely in control of his car at that point, so I think all fair, but it just goes to show it's a treacherous part of the circuit, that exit of turn 3. Van der Meulen's off again, and unfortunately that's brought him back into the clutches of the lapped car of Roy Clark there. Harry Dodds not far behind, and he's dragging Brandon Levin with him. Dodds, another one of the drivers that's made up bulk positions in this race.
Things are getting closer up front, so we take a look with Lachlan Pryke, now only half a second.
Milner! Oh! Big slide! Got caught up over the curb, and he has to take to the grass on the inside of the final corner. We'll have a slowdown penalty to serve, and that's Lachlan Pryke to the lead for Rapid Theft Racing. He'll be happy with that. Didn't need to do a thing.
Getting increasingly challenging in a couple of places, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I've always thought that the way those final turns are constructed here, the way there's that sort of return lane to the drag strip in between turns 10 and 11, the way the curbs are laid out around there as well, it really stands a chance of unsettling you. Drivers often avoid those curbs, even in the dry, for that exact reason.
Tail out for Stenberg, trying to navigate that triple apex right-hander. Very close behind Craig Bond, and suddenly Bond's not that far behind Milner and your leader. So this battle, third, fourth and fifth, had first and second scampering away, and then that moment for Milner has brought the whole top 5 a little bit closer together with a pit stop still to come. This is the moment.
Change of direction. Oh, he got caught over the lip of that curb. Just a little bit too much there. It unsettled the rear, and around he went almost. It wasn't quite a spin, but it was enough to lose Liam Milner the lead. Still running in second place, about 1.6 seconds or so ahead of this battle between Craig Bond, Kurt Stenberg and Ryan Nielsen. Yep, that is wide for Craig Bond. And now Stenberg is on the outside on the way into turn 1. There's more rubber on the racing line in this heavy braking zone. Can Stenny round him up through the first corner? There's not much room there. They will both go side by side, and that's going to give the opportunity to Ryan Nielsen. 3 wide into turn 3 is not going to work, and Craig Bond is the one that comes out the worst.
Nielsen placed himself so well, he expected chaos. Now he's got the inside here and squeezing Stenberg.
Oh.
They make a bit more contact.
They do indeed. Nielsen and Stenberg have already been rubbing panels in this race a bit so far, and that shows no signs of slowing down. The wide line there for Nielsen allows Stenny to get alongside, but it does allow Nielsen to defend into the hairpin here. First to the apex with that incredibly wide entry, much like you see at tracks like Circuit of the Americas, for example. This is another view of how it went down. So a poor exit there for Craig Bond, and he was forced defensive versus Stenny. But then the run into turn 1 here, it's so difficult to translate a wide line through turn 1 into the apex of turn 2. You saw how much Stenny had to slow the car up, and in came Ryan Nielsen saying, yes, I will take that position. But Kurt Stenberg, I think, got a bit of oversteer through turn 3, which put him into Bond.
Bond hits that curve at turn 3 as well, and jumps just like a quarter of a car width wide to where Stenny was. But, I mean, it's full credit to Nielsen, who saw what was going to happen there and goes, all right, well, I'll just set up for this exit off turn 2, and it all sort of opened up for him.
Looking back a little further here to Brandon Levin and Harry Dodds, who now see the slightly damaged Craig Bond right in front of them. And we'll have to wait another lap or so to see what Bond's pace is really like, but that Mustang is missing its rear bumper, so I think there's going to be maybe a few small things wrong with that car now. Brandon Levin has a nice view of that. And you see how much the rain is, well, I wouldn't call it relentless because it is light, but it is continuing to fall. Race Control currently reviewing that incident between Craig Bond and Kurt Stenberg. I don't know, would anything have been worth a penalty there? I guess that's the main question that'll be in the back of my mind, at least. For now, though, Stenberg has to focus on getting into third place because that is going to be his ticket into Split 1.
Yeah, I'm not penalising Stenny for that because I think he left room at all phases, and you know, we were kind of partially 3 wide, and I think 2 drivers were aware of that and 1 wasn't.
Oh, this is a late dive. Benjamin Smith on Cameron Garrity, and he gets the move done at turn 1. Puts the power down nice and smooth out of turn 2 and takes the position. Benjamin Smith has been one of the hard chargers in this field. He was the man who passed Harry Dodds around the outside into turn 9 earlier, and his impressive run continues.
So we're not that far away from the halfway point of this race. Starting to get a couple more pit stops. Everyone who started on slick tyres made a stop basically as early as they could to get them off. So I think definitely Tixia, Vella and Clark have done that. Starting to get a few others that are going from wet tyres to wet tyres, like Scott McKenzie 6 laps ago and Craig Bond right now, but partially because of the damage. Well, mostly because of the damage for Bond, because that's a long stop.
Yeah, certainly is. In fact, he hasn't emerged back out of pit lane yet, so he is hoping that he can at least make it back out there for the moment. Lachlan Pryke leading the race by just a couple of seconds or so, just over a second from Liam Milner. Narrow line into the first corner. I understand the need to try and go for an early apex there, but it's so difficult to pick your turn-in point for that first chicane, even in the dry.
And a lap time comparison, the fastest pre-qualifying time that got us here was Cameron Garrity with a minute 12.8. Meanwhile, we're currently lapping at sort of the minute 21s, minute 20s.
Oh dear, Andrew Ritchie with a problem in the final corners. The rear bumper of the Banter Alliance Camaro does not look like it's up to code. Neither does the front bumper either. It's been a bit of a rough and tumble race here for Andrew Ritchie. Not entirely certain what caused his off there, but I'm sure it was another appointment with these curbs. Yep, there we go. Exactly the same thing that happened to Liam Milner earlier.
Seems like there's concrete on the inside of the curb, unpainted concrete. And I think if your right side wheels touch that, you're in trouble. So look at this here. We kind of ride a little bit of the red and white curb. Stenny seems to be able to get away with a little bit more than others, and maybe that's fair enough.
Yes, Stenny is the most experienced driver in V8SCOPS history, has more V8SCOPS race starts than anyone else, and he's a member of Trans-Tasman Racing, one of the powerhouse teams of the oceanic sim racing scene. Of course, he's really working hard behind the wheel at the moment with his unique driving position, but he's just received word of a 15-second penalty that Race Control has given to him for that contact with Craig Bond. That's a bit harsh.
Well, they will have looked at it more times than we have.
Yeah, fair enough. We are just here to blab over these pixels. Race Control are the ones who are doing the serious work behind the scenes, and they're able to see every single angle of that incident. It was a difficult incident in any case. Seb Tixier, the next driver to have a problem through the final corners. He's one of the drivers racing in virtual reality today. And it seems like...
What setting do you think that fan is on for the Frenchman?
Gotta wonder. Seb, I believe, lives in Singapore, so he's able to make these races without it being too much of a problem for his body clock. But you know,
so
considering
the fan's probably still on high then.
Yeah, most likely. And considering the heat wave that our friends in the Northern Hemisphere are dealing with at the moment, I wouldn't blame him for putting that fan on an extra high setting.
I like to ask oscillating fans questions that a fan would say yes to.
Problem for Stenny. Lost the rear end through the opening chicane there. and that's going to put him a bit further back. And with that 15-second penalty, that's going to pretty much dash all of his hopes of making it into split one today. Regardless, he's still got a fair chance here. Just watch him as he hits the curb here. Oh, yeah, looked like quite a big bump there. You know, you watch onboards of IndyCar here, and they go right across that curb at high speed. But in these cars, in these conditions, that bump is evidently not the friend of many.
You still can't count out Stenny because we've got pit stops still to come. That always opens up the opportunity for mistakes or, you know, pit lane speeding penalties. I believe this is the first SCOPS round since we had the new speed limiters.
Yeah, I believe Phillip Island.
Yeah,
Phillip Island would have been the first of them a couple of weeks ago, which we were not able to bring you a complete show of, but we were able to close it out. This is it's something that the drivers do need to think about. The new pit speed limiter logic that was introduced to iRacing in the most recent season build. I haven't seen much of a difference myself, but you can clearly feel some difference in the way the pit speed limiter engages.
I've just seen more penalties from it. Drivers, maybe pressing the button as they're braking for the pit entry in third gear, taking the couple of downshifts, and then it doesn't adjust to being in a different gear than when you engage the limiter.
Oh, Lachlan Pryke with a spin out of turn 7 loses the lead again to Liam Milner. That puts Nielsen up into second and Kurt Stenberg back on the podium, but of course with that 15-second time penalty still hanging over his head. Pryke now back to 5th place and could be under some pressure from Cameron Gerrity here.
The red car back there from Banter Alliance Racing.
Yes. Oh, here comes Milner into pit lane. And he brings it down to the pit speed limit very nicely. Reasonably quick pit lane here at Portland International Raceway compared to other circuits that these cars usually race at. Oh, Stenny again catching that bump at turn 1. It seems like his trajectory needs a bit of adjustment there. But 64 kilometers per hour, the pit speed limit here at Portland, which is about 40 miles an hour, I believe. Certainly a nicer time than the 40 kilometer an hour pit speed limit they'll have to deal with at the Bend later on this season.
Yep, long pit lane, slow speed, huge lane transit time. So Milner's out of the lane after his stop.
And looking at that stop, it seems pretty standard for what we'd expect. 10.6 seconds, that's enough time to get all 4 tyres changed and get the requisite amount of fuel to get to the end of the race. But we've often found that in wet conditions, sometimes it's best to just leave the tyres on, especially with shorter races like the one we're dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, the cold tyre warm-up can be a little bit challenging, but perhaps on tracks wetter than this. Ben Smith hits from behind this, so does Lachlan Pryke, and almost every pit stop I've seen, they're limited on waiting for the tyres instead of the fuel drop. Bit of fuel saving, easier to do in the wet, and they aren't needing to take all that much.
Yeah, and fuel usage is generally lighter in the wet than it is in the dry anyway, because you're not spending as much time at full throttle. Well, Vincent Skilbeck is going to stay out of pit lane for the moment. Vincent making his way back from 17th position. And Ryan Nielsen now sees more pressure from Kurt Stenberg here, as they are our current race leaders, but not effective. They will be coming into the pits very shortly, I'm sure. They've got until the start of the penultimate lap, I believe, to get their pit stop done and dusted. So how long they stay out remains to be seen. but you keep an eye on these curbs here as Stenny gets right on the back of Nielsen. There actually is some standing water if you look close enough there at the apex of turn 9. So the conditions are getting more treacherous as time goes on.
Yeah, but we're only 15 minutes away, maybe less, from the rain stopping. It's interesting. This will change just a little bit in the last 3 or 4 laps, but not enough to think that you'll go to slick tyres and make any advantage from that at your pit stop. But the track has gotten a little bit wetter as we've gone on. There's a chance that that stops in the next 10 minutes.
Into the pits comes Brandon Levin next to find his way in, and he's going to be followed by Vincent Skilbeck. Milner's going to get back past them. And interestingly, Lachlan Pryke is not too far behind Milner now. It just seems that Pryke has incredible pace. It's just a case of keeping it on the track. And
you see a dry line
to mistakes in these conditions. Yeah, I think I am starting to see a bit of a dry line starting to form there into turn 1.
The only place all race that I've seen a dry line forming.
I think one's starting to form around here as well, depending on how the light hits the track. I do see a little streak on the racing line in these opening corners. On board with Stenny, this is a big slide all the way over on the lock stops there. Nice save from the number 47.
And now he's going to jump into pit lane. There's just a few drivers left that haven't made a stop. Here, Levin and Logsdale have, and Ritchie hasn't. Might have a bit more tyre temperature as I think he gets into Logsdale.
Running a slightly lighter car as well. Remember that Logsdale and Levin have just taken fuel, and they're going to go side by side through turn 7. Just avoid making contact. But this is bringing Ritchie and, well, I suppose Seb Tixier is the driver we should be focusing on for that, as that was really slippery out of turn 7 for Brandon Levin. He's going to fall behind all of them now. So it is between Logsdale and Ritchie into turn 9. Get over the standing water there. Manages to keep it stable, does Dean Logsdale, who started this race being turned around in turn 2 by the driver who's only a couple of cars behind. He and Seb Tixier will be coming together again very soon. Out of the pits, meanwhile, comes the Mustang of Scott McKenzie. And looks like... sorry, no, that's Harry Dodds. My apologies, it just came out there. Still fighting going on here between Stenberg and Milner. Fresh out of the pits is Stenny, and that is a good stop for Stenberg, 9.7 seconds, and he was able to keep the pace up. Milner and Pryke just seem to be struggling for that pace at the moment.
And we just saw a bit of Brandon Levin being passed, and he was on his outlap on what appeared to be new tyres, so there is a little bit of Bambi on the frozen lake to a new set of wet tyres, at least for a lap or so. But we are getting to that point deep enough into the race where you can go the Reece Gardner strategy. Damn it, just leave the same wet tyres on, preserve that temperature.
Yeah, indeed. There may be what Ryan Nielsen and Cameron Garrity are thinking about. They're they're 2 of only 3 cars, left in the field yet to take a stop, including Andrew Ritchie. Seb Tixier, though, on the back of Andrew Ritchie here, and nearly getting into his bumper on the way into the final corner, but the amount of swaying going on here. Ritchie, I think, is going to be going for pit lane here, so, no, he's going to stay out again. This is interesting from Ritchie, and from Nielsen and Garrity as well. I wasn't really expecting him to stay out this long.
Tixier swaps lane from the outside to dive down the inside, a little bit too far back for all of this, though.
Yeah, just clattering over the curb, the inside of turn 2. All that matters is straightening out as soon as possible for the exit through turn 3. 7.5 laps to go for our effective race leaders, as Cameron Garrity also avoids coming into pit lane. But here's Milner and Stenberg side by side early on, but Stenny taking the line that we saw him take in practice when we were riding on board with him, and he somehow manages to keep the pace going through the final turns. But whether or not he challenges Milner, it's not going to matter, because whatever happens to Stenny, his race will have 15 seconds of time added to it. And looking at where we're at the moment, 15 seconds puts him back to P6 or so. In between Benjamin. Yes, yeah, exactly. Between Green and Van der Meulen. So while he is fighting for the podium at the moment, he won't be by race end.
Nielsen yet to stop. Garrity yet to stop. So they're fair bit up the road. That's going to be a slowdown for Nielsen. And it actually makes it difficult to pit when you're carrying a slowdown, because you need to clear the slowdown, which he has, before you commit to pit entry, which he has.
All right. So Nielsen then leaves it just 2 cars yet to pit, and Cameron Garrity is going to make it 1 car yet to pit as he follows Nielsen into the pit lane. Lachlan Pryke had the lead of the race for a few laps before his error, and then Benjamin Smith, who has barely put a foot wrong all race, right on the back of him now and challenging for what could be a podium finish, sees the door open to the inside through the final corner, and rubbing wheels, rubbing panels with Lachlan Pryke. Smith gets the drive out of the final corner and could complete the move at turn 1. Oh, contact down the straight.
I think there'll be more.
Yep, most likely. On the way into turn 1, Milner's going to try and squeeze him, but Benjamin Smith aiming for the apex of turn 2. Barely enough room for Lachlan Pryke there to keep his car alongside. Smith manages to complete the move, and Ryan Nielsen has come out of pit lane in first place. I was not expecting that. Big overcut.
I think there's a big overcut on going to the new tyres, because of that temperature loss when you go to a new set of wets on a cold track.
Yeah, fair point. And that that really flies in the face of my earlier comments about these drivers staying out.
But now he's got a lap where he's Bambi. Look how quickly Milner and Stenberg are going to catch him.
Yeah, well, that depends on whether they can work out this side-by-side here. Stenny so late on the brakes into turn 9. He's not going to make it. Oh, he only just makes it. Liam Milner has to back off to allow Stenny to recover that. It's looking very racy, is the number 47, in spite of his penalty.
Or perhaps because of. I mean, we'll see what kind of a result he can get, but there's so much still to happen. 5 laps to go. Rain's about to stop. A couple of drivers had just pitted and they're on cold tyres. Smith and Pryke look like they might run each other off the road. There's plenty that can happen that could still see Stenberg finish on the podium here.
Yep. Just need to keep our eyes peeled all over this circuit, because the battles are everywhere. Stenny versus Milner here coming through turns 4 and 5. Benjamin Smith and Lachlan Pryke right behind them. And Seb Tixier and Scott McKenzie were briefly in a fight for 11th spot or so. Trent Bennett is going to move past Andrew Ritchie, because Ritchie has come into pit lane after 24 laps out on circuit. And it looks like, though he has the overcut over the drivers that he's been racing, it's not going to net him many positions. He'll remain in about 16th, 17th from here.
So Nielsen's still 3-ish seconds up the road from that. Oh, just lost about a second on the back straight. Is he fuel saving? Oh. And then Stenberg's off the road.
Oh, yep, he caught that standing water on the inside of turn 9, and I think that over-moistened his tyres a little bit, and he went too deep through turn 10. It might be in a couple of years if I start a trend.
It checks out. It's a cromulent word.
Perfectly cromulent. Well, Nielsen leading by just a few seconds over Stenberg and Milner. His last lap was a 122.1. Both Stenberg and Milner setting 121.4s. So they are gaining time hand over fist right now, because Ryan Nielsen is still in the warm-up phase of those wet tyres. They're not giving him the best grip. Tixier comes into the pits for the second time. Remember, he had to change from the dries to the wets at the end of lap 2. And obviously he wasn't able to get his full amount of fuel in to get to the finish from there. So this is going to be Seb probably ruining that mistake mistake and costing him the chance to maybe get into split one today.
Smith in fourth, Pryke, fastest car on track behind him in fifth. They stopped on the same lap. Should be same tyre age, pretty similar tyre temperature.
Every single time they come through that sequence of corners and they start heading towards those outside curbs, I hold my breath, my diaphragm tenses, because Benjamin Smith has been one of the fastest guys out there today. He has the fastest lap of the race of a 1:20.3, but that was before the track really got to this state. He's working his way up very nicely, and at the moment I think is in an effective podium position.
Now you can see the sun has come out because the rain is about to go away. Hold on to it. Hold on to it. I give that a 10 out of 10. Good stuff.
Yep.
And the rain is about to stop. So sun out. It's June 28th. So that is summer sunshine in Portland. Benjamin Smith, this race is decided by the stopwatch, not by the judges.
Yes, though we can give you a 10, it's not going to get you into split one, so got to be careful on the way through turns 4 and 5. You see there, just as he tried to get the car straightened up for the exit, the rear went, and that's a proper drift that Benjamin Smith put on there. You love to see it. 3 laps to go for our leader, Ryan Nielsen, and Kurt Stenberg is now only 7/10 behind him as they come across the start-finish line. Can Stenberg somehow take victory on the road here?
Yeah, to end up on the podium in the standings, he's going to need a lot more field spread, because at the moment 15 seconds drops him to 7th place, and he needs to find another 10 seconds to even consider sort of the top 5 or a podium.
Yeah, so I got to wonder if Ryan Nielsen is going to fight him too hard if he goes for the move, because he knows that Stenberg is going to be set back on the results sheet. So what's the point of really fighting him for the lead? They've got lap traffic to contend with as well, which may add another wrinkle to things. First car they'll be coming up on is, in fact, Nielsen's teammate, Andrew Ritchie. Oh, looks like Harry Dodds has had a problem at turn 2. The telltale smoke and number 11's laid down there. Bit of a problem. Stenberg rounding up Ryan Nielsen, but not making the move into turns 9 and 10. Stenny seems the most comfortable of anyone over those curbs. I think you said something to that effect earlier, David. He's really managing to maximize the track width here, even in the wet.
Not like it hasn't led to a couple of little moments, but ones that he's mostly survived was Harry Dodds at 1. Yep, it's that second part of the curb that they clip. Goes for a 360 and continues. Final lap.
Yep, white flag is out. And Ryan Nielsen's going to try and keep Kurt Stenberg behind him. He'd love to take victory on the road. Liam Milner and Benjamin Smith are your effective race podium at the moment, though Stenny is racing for the checkered flag here with Ryan Nielsen. He'll be set back 15 seconds by the end of the race. He is looking for every bit of opportunity here as the lap traffic lets them go. But Ryan Nielsen holds strong into turn 7. Nice wide entry for Stenny, though. Gains some momentum on the exit. Is it going to be enough for a move into turns 9 and 10?
Only one car length between them, taking different lines. The sweeping back straight.
Lots of bumps, track width varying. Stenberg taking to the grass, and he's going to go for it. Coming into turn 10, Ryan Nielsen gives him room to the inside, and there's almost contact on the exit. Bit of a catch of the curb there from Nielsen, and that's going to be the end of it. Checkered flag out, and Kurt Stenberg is going to cross the line half a car length ahead, or is it going to be almost a dead heat between them? That's crazy. 0.005 of a second in it between Stenberg and Nielsen. But Ryan Nielsen will be granted victory from that.
Yes, he will. Milner and Smith will be the podium, and Jaden Green just crosses the checkered flag now, 18 seconds behind. So it will be 7th place for 6th place for Stenberg, 7th for Green.
Yes. Battling going on towards the end here. We've had a 4-car fight emerge. The teammates are Scott McKenzie and Trent Bennett, sandwiched in between Dean Logsdale and Brandon Levin. And the run to the line beckons for all of them. Big slide again for Brandon Levin. He's really struggled in these wet conditions. But they will cross the line in that order to round out your top 10 for Dean Logsdale. Good drive in the end. And Craig Bond, who would have been hoping for a lot better from today's race, coming across the line in 15th. Our last 2 cars on the lead lap appear to be Seb Tixier here and Roy Clark in car 21, who's going to cross the line just behind him, with Steve Vella having already taken to the finish, I believe. Either that or he's just pitted and gone for another lap. But it looks like those results are official now. And that means we have our, well, unofficial results up on the screen. Kurt Stenberg does take victory on the road, but that 15-second penalty will put him back to P6. That makes Ryan Nielsen, Liam Milner, and Benjamin Smith your podium, who will move through into Split 1 later on. Lachlan Pryke, effective 4th. Cameron Garrity, effective 5th. Jaden Green will finish in 7th spot, ahead of Sean Van der Meulen, Harry Dodds, and Dean Logsdale. That is your top 10. In 11th spot, Scott McKenzie, with Trent Bennett not too far behind. Brandon Levin following them to the checkered. Vincent Skilbeck finishes on his lonesome in 14th spot, but up from 17th, not a bad run. Craig Bond, he started in the top 5, but has to settle for 15th, and same for Seb Tixier, also 10 positions down from where he started. Roy Clark, though, starting from P3. The decision to go onto the slick tyres at the start of the race just started a chain reaction of bad luck and bad form for him, which means P17 is all he can hope for. Andrew Ritchie and Steve Vella finished a lap down each. So it's going to be the end of things for split number 2. But I've got to say, David, for the first V8SCOPS race at Portland, just in time for the end of the race, the rain is going to go.
Yeah, shout out to all of our, viewers who stuck around to the end of that race. The rain did too. It'll be very easy to burn it down for Ryan Nielsen on the front straight there. He'll almost dry off part of that track, perhaps. He is one of the drag racing cars. Very, very well deserved. Great strategy to stay out long, found some clear track, kept heat in the tyres, and that worked out so well for him.
We'll see if he can maintain that form in Split 1 later on. The night is far from done. We've still got another couple hours worth of on-track action to come from Portland International Raceway, round 7 of V8SCOPS for 2026. We're going to take a breather here on Sim Speed and be back very shortly to bring you that Split 1 action.
It is feature time in Tulsa. Let's go green.
He's got the run, but isn't enough. It's a drag race to the finish. Culver goes from 3rd to 1st in the last quarter.
Experience the world's most legendary racing events with iRacing. iRacing special events allow any member to compete in full-length multiplayer races based on some of the biggest events in motorsports all year round. Compete in virtual endurance races, such as the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, and the Nürburgring 24 Hours. Take on some of the toughest races on the NASCAR calendar, such as the Daytona 500 and the Coke 600. We have races from disciplines across the racing world, from the Indy 500 to the Chili Bowl, from the Bathurst 1000 to the Crandon Championship. Our endurance special events utilize iRacing's team feature, where members can sign up and race together on their own team, swapping drivers throughout the race. Other events use iRacing Super Sessions, where you're not only racing against those on track, but against everyone taking part. As every race progresses, watch and feel the track change, with progressive time of day, dynamic weather and rain, and dynamic track debris and surface changes. Take on your favorite discipline, or try a brand new racing challenge with our biggest races of the year, the iRacing Special Events. Learn more at iracing.com/special-events.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV, round 7 of V8SCOPS for 2026 for the first time at Portland International Raceway in virtual Oregon in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Split 2 was rain affected and it produced some quite interesting racing, including a penalty for Kurt Stenberg, which he is currently appealing with the stewards. We'll see if that reinstates him into Split 1, which we are about to move to now. If you're just joining us, my name's Reese Gardner. David Haynes is with me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy is with us also behind the scenes, handling production. This has turned out to be a bang-up, perfect track for these cars, in my opinion, and hopefully the Split 1 action, David, is going to continue to prove that.
As we knew it would be. Yes, indeed. Some challenging curbs, a couple of possible switchback opportunities. Just a really great track for these cars, and then that fast sweeping straight that's technically got turn 9 in the middle of it. It's been good.
It certainly has. A look at the motocross track in the middle of this racetrack. You see in the background off to the left is the festival turns, or the first chicane here at Portland. Lots of flat land here, barely any elevation change at all at this circuit, but it's great for racing, and we're going to get a big 64 lap race here today, single 200k format. Qualifying is going to take place before it, though, split into 2 groups of 15 minutes each. But an 80% fuel tank restriction and 2 compulsory pit stops in the race to come. This is the tried and true format that V8SCOPS has been known for. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out, especially considering it doesn't look like there's any rain on the horizon for Split 1. We're going to be racing in the dry.
Yeah, unless there is a large jump in time between this practice, the qualifying, and the race, which there'll be some, but it'd have to be some quite late afternoon showers because the track is bone dry right now and no rain expected in the next 90 minutes, not even a whisper. So we'll see how we race on a dry track.
Yeah, we certainly will. 27-degree track temperature out there, which is right in prime territory for fast laps. And speaking of fast laps, you've been seeing them get put on the board in the practice session. Zach Rattray-White currently topping things on a 1:12.6, and we've got plenty more times to come in. The session has only really just started, so let's see how those times are brought down as time goes on.
Now, we had no safety car in Split 2. So what does that lend us to think then for Split 1? Definitely possible.
We have received word of the session times. It's currently just past 10:30 a.m. in sim time. Qualifying is scheduled to start at 11:30 a.m. in sim, and then the race at 1 p.m. So we'll be racing into the afternoon, which means we should be expecting some higher track temperatures. Again, we can't look forward too far, so we are completely blind as to whether or not more rain is expected. But we'll get some views of drivers out on the circuit at the moment here. Terry Marsh for AITX Revolution iRacing, managing to get into Split 1 here. And it's been good to see those Revolution iRacing cars out there this season. They've been a constant presence. Terry is also one of the drivers who's on board with us on Zoom for today. So we'll get a nice view of his questionable chroma keying there.
Well, they can't all be professionals like Southpaw Racer.
I am far from a professional. I'm still trying to work on getting my keying just right. But Terry has yet to set a lap. We do have the times coming down at the very top of the time sheets. Rehan Leonage is our current fastest driver in practice, a 10th ahead of Zach Rattray-White at the moment. Terry Marsh demonstrating not just the lap here, but also setup tendencies. You know, we started to see it, I think, at the end of last season, and especially at the start of this season as well, as we keep an eye on Dylan Gray here for Pacific Esports Racing. You'll notice the attitude of these cars in a straight line when they're on the power. It's almost as if they're running the rear ride height slammed versus the front. And we've seen that from some of the fastest teams, some of the drivers who are known for being able to find those significant tweaks that can get you tons of lap time, a bit more car stability. It seems that the meta for the setup this season is running that rear ride height especially low. I guess allows the rear to sort of stay a little bit more stable through the corners.
For a while, we were seeing sort of two different ways. There were some teams and drivers that would set up their cars very aggressively and then try to drive them in a way to tame them. So, you know, short shifts, high gears, and others that would set up the car a little more stable, a little more neutrally, and then would give aggressive inputs to try to make the car turn, to try to accelerate off the corners. So there were a couple of different ways, different strategies, different driving styles. You know, start with a wild car and try to tame it, or start with a tame car and try to drive it wild.
Yes, and that does seem to be the case, that latter option for some of the quickest drivers in this field. Rayhan Leonage coming off some pretty good form in the last week or so. Won the Logitech Pro Invitational Series, V8 Pro Invitational Series, Phillip Island 500 on Friday, driving with Emily Jones. So he's got plenty of pace, as has Emily, both recently tasting victory and looking to taste it again. But coming up to the top of the field, William Sapstead and our big championship protagonist with Zach Rattray White, Sean Campbell. We're back on his home turf in the United States here. Let's see if that gives him those extra couple of tenths. Could be crucial at such a short circuit.
Well, he goes to the top of the timing with that lap. This looks like a lot of quali sim happening throughout the field. That bodes well for Campbell up to the top. Rattray White in 6th at the moment. Rain Campbell down to 11th. Leonage in 2nd. Here's Rattray White.
Running quite a wide line down that back stretch. I'm noticing that from a lot of these drivers. You know, when I've been driving laps around Portland, admittedly not in these cars, I've tended to stick to the right side concrete wall all the way down that back stretch, but it appears these V8SCOPS drivers are content to sort of use a bit more of the track down that back stretch to maybe put them on a bit of a straighter trajectory for the braking zone for turn 9, which is understandable. It's an incredibly bumpy braking zone and a crazy fast sequence of corners to end the lap, so I guess you know, setting your trajectory up for stability is key.
That lap could have been a flying lap from Zach Rattray White, but it was 2.5 seconds or so off the pace. He seems to be lining up for another quick one here. I note that Leonage went to the top on the 2nd or 3rd flying lap on a set of tyres. This is quite a quick and short lap. So, I mean, Simmons Plains that ate its vegetables and grew up big and strong.
That's a good comparison, actually. You know, the track is dominated by straights, by flat-out sections, and what corners there are slow, and they don't put much load through the tyres. So it makes sense to me to see that these drivers are getting more than one hot lap out of these tyres. Rattray White brings the pace back down, 112.36, and Kane Kugamiya is looking pretty good as well. Now rounding out the top 5 as Ryan O'Sullivan slotted himself into P4. Breaking news we are hearing. Well, you mentioned earlier that Kurt Stenberg had been appealing the 15-second time penalty that he was handed in race 1 for contact coming out of turn 1. It appears that race control have re-examined the incident and now see it Stenny's way. So Kurt Stenberg is now going to be in split 1. So that's good news for Stenny. Bad news for Benjamin Smith, though. So that's going to be confirmation that Kurt Stenberg is indeed classed as the winner of the Split 2 race just earlier on, and what a finish it was by 0.005 of a second. Yeah, commiserations to, I believe, Benjamin Smith, though, because he put on a stellar drive to finish what would have been 3rd place had Stenny's penalty stood.
That's very interesting and dramatic, but not outrageous, unexpected, or unfair. So yeah, we might get a little bit more Kurt Stenberg, to his delight, probably also to the SimSpeed viewers' delight. Yep. Speaking of SimSpeed viewers, how far are we away from that 10,000 subscribers? I want that pizza party I was promised.
I wouldn't say no to a pizza party either. It's been a long time coming, that 10K. SimSpeed having been around, starting as V8s Online all the way back in 2011. And we have been a constant presence in the AusNZ sim racing scene ever since. 2026 notching up another year on the cards. Jay's going to get us an official number on that subscriber count pretty soon, as pit stop practice here for Rehan Leonage. There's no real commitment line coming into pit lane at this circuit, but you got to make sure that you get on those brakes properly. It's an interesting exit out of the final corner, isn't it? Because the track keeps curving. You got to try and take a narrow line if you want to get into pit lane. That could cause some dramas pitting under green flag in the race.
Yeah, good. Particularly if another driver tries to get down the inside of you on the final corner, a move that we saw Kurt Stenberg try to do. You don't want to let anyone get between you and the pit entry. That's when bad things happen.
Oh, certainly. Here's Angus Lawford, meanwhile. Some good form from Angus on one-lap pace here in practice. Car number 52 sitting in 12th spot in amongst drivers like William Brown and James Chastaneuf. Still waiting on lap times from a few drivers, and I would expect at the very least Kurt Stenberg, Hayden Veld and Liam Milner to find their way up the field. Throw in Ryan Nielsen there as well, joining Milner and Stenberg, racing from split 2 to split 1. Only 3 minutes remain. Across the line comes Lawford, a 112.4. That's another improvement up to P7. Angus has got good form today.
Interestingly, as this goes on, the track temperature is rising quite quickly. It's mid-morning and sunny. So track temp up to 30.6 now. It just keeps climbing a notch on the thermometer every 5 minutes or so. We'll see if a little bit of relief or some cloud cover comes over at a later point. But it'll be interesting as we go through this session and then into qualifying that we could continue to build track temperature. Milner, no time on the board just yet, but we're right on board as this looks like a flying lap.
He's one of the drivers that's getting a whip of oversteer out of turn 3, but also taking that first chicane in 3rd gear. Didn't go down to 2nd. That's a tendency that we've noticed since these Gen 3 supercars came to iRacing. They don't have as much traction in those lower gears as they used to, and so drivers are often using those higher gears. You know, we had that little bit of setup talk earlier. This factors into that. Liam, one of the drivers who's comfortable with using the torque low down that these 5.7 litre V8. No, 6.2, right, in the Chevrolet. A little bit more of a difference between the respective engines now in this current generation of supercars, but Liam comfortable to use those slightly higher gears through the slow corners for a smoother run out. And this will be his first flying lap in practice with the session almost over. Just a minute and 15 seconds to go. 1:13.5. That's going to be the slowest time that we've seen so far, but there is enough time left for Milner to get another lap in before qualifying gets underway.
I think we rode on board with him on that lap and he lost a little bit of time exiting turn 2. The car in front really pulled away from him there, but the rest of it looked relatively fine.
Yeah, Liam's probably still driving in wet weather mode. Remember the drivers that have come in from Split to spent the entire race on a wet track, and so they were being a little bit more careful with their gear selection, not revving it out on the exits as much as you would in the dry. So there is a bit of an adjustment period that needs to be taken into account.
Checkered flag about to fly on this session with Sean Campbell and Zach Rattray-White, our 2 championship protagonists, first and second. You know, it's your 2 highest rated football teams meeting in the grand final.
Yes, indeed, but we are still about halfway through the season, and there's plenty more to come, I'm sure, between Sean and Zach there, who top our practice session as the timer hits 0. Only 0.03 of a second in it between them, and the top 4 covered by less than a tenth. Ran Leonage and Ryan O'Sullivan in 3rd and 4th. Then Lawford, Sapstead, Cougamia, Emily Jones, Will Buchanan, and Adam Briggs rounding out the top 10. Some excellent form from Angus Lawford. He's one of the drivers that really jumps out to me there. Kane Cougamia as well, a driver who long-time viewers of SimSpeed will know from the good old days, I suppose, of about 10 years ago or so. And he is now back in the saddle this year and has been steadily improving round on round. Looking at the drivers just outside the top 10, anyone who jumps out here, I guess I would expect Brett Loxton to maybe find a couple of more tenths in qualifying. He's always a factor in these cars. William Brown knocking on the door of that top 10. Oh, qualifying is underway now, and Group 1 is out. That's positions 16 to 32 in pre-qualifying, plus the Split 2 podium, which is, of course, Kurt Stenberg, Liam Milner, and his name now escapes me. Ryan Nielsen, that's the one. My apologies. Brain is braining only sometimes today. But Ryan O'Sullivan is going to be the one leading the charge here. Looks like 2 of the Eclipse Camaros out there at the moment. The other one there, I believe, would be Hayden Veld, because I haven't seen Zach Rattray-White come out yet. He would be in Group 2, which is going to be happening later on. So, out of the final corner, and the first hot laps about to be set here. Low fuel, maximum attack. Qualifying laps at Portland. Let's go with Ryan O'Sullivan hard on the brakes into turn 1 here. Early turn in, you're sweeping it in across the curb, which we saw was very treacherous in the wet. They are bouncing across that curb at turn 2 now in the dry, and carrying a lot of speed into turns 3, 4, and 5. This, well, I guess a double apex right that feeds right into another right-hander, making it effectively a triple apex right. It's all about flow and throttle control through this part of the track.
And 3 rights don't make a wrong. Ryan O'Sullivan doing very well here. Just, you've got to put in a banker lap here, and the way that this is around this track, lap time's just over a minute, you'll get quite a few opportunities. Some of the other tracks we go to, it's like, oh, well, I'm only really going to get 3 flying laps. Maybe only 2 if I, mess one up. But here, you will get plenty of opportunities, maybe even the ability to do back-to-back push laps on a set of tyres as well. So, no real loss, I think, in these conditions to starting out with a safe banker.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what kind of time is put down here from Ryan O'Sullivan. He was 3 tenths up on Hunter Salvatore there on the first sector. Across the line, 112.4 from O'Sullivan, and no valid lap time from Hayden Veld just behind him. So that's not ideal there, but still has a couple of laps in the run to set that time. Pepperell goes to P2, Briggs rounding out the top 3 for now. Hunter Salvatore comes across the line to set a 112.9. Still puts him ahead of Roger Forbett and Aaron Gilbert, and Emily Jones moving up into second now, just a few hundredths behind O'Sullivan. There's the lap time from Hayden Veld, a 1:12.5 puts him P3.
So, we are now about to see a lap time from everyone who's been out there, who's had a lap time disallowed. No one yet. O'Sullivan from Emily Jones from Hayden Veld as the top three. Ken Latter appears to be on a potentially slightly different run plan here. Oh, or maybe that's just where they are in the pit lane.
Yeah, it can be difficult to tell sometimes. Kobe Williams, driving for Eclipse Sim Sports, brings it in from 7th spot. Ultimately, yeah, it looks like Kenneth Latter just coming into pit lane just behind those guys. Bunch of drivers making their way into the pits this time. One of the Team Jinx Shifters machines there of Aaron Gilbert. Next to bring it in. We still have cars out there. Roger Forbett being one of them, and he's just gained a couple of spots there. Puts himself in 13th up from 16th. Not bad.
So a 1:12.4 is what we're looking to beat. Banks with a 1:13, jumps up just a couple of spots.
Solid job. And I think just, solid consistency is what you need in this first part of the session. In about 10 seconds' time, they'll have 10 minutes to go, which will then allow them, I think, maybe 2 more runs of about 3 or 4 laps in a row. It does seem like there's some cloud cover over the circuit at the moment, so the track temp should stall a little bit. It has risen since practice, up to 31 Celsius now, but that's still not quite in too hot territory by my assessment.
No, and I note that Liam Milner set his best lap after doing a push-cool push. So he then went quicker after that. Maybe something for some others to keep their eye on.
Yeah, it used to be that in these cars, the tyres were at their best right out of the box, and you just had to get out there, set the hot lap, and then abandon the rest of it. It was very rare that we would see drivers going for more than one hot lap on a run, but it seems with updates to the tyre model, updates to the cars, and as iRacing changes from build to build over time, we're starting to see some more variance on run plans, and the nature of this circuit, I think, is playing into it as well. I honestly don't think the tyres go through very much around here, because you are spending most of your time at this circuit going in a straight line, or near enough, with, as I said, all of the significant corners on this track, or most of them at least, being low load. The only exception being these corners here that we are following Adam Briggs through, turns 9, 10, and 11, and the run out to the start-finish straight. That's where the tyres are working their hardest, I'd say.
This will be a good lap for Briggs, and it'll be an improvement for Ryan O'Sullivan as well. So Briggs jumps up into 4th, and O'Sullivan just moves the marker a tiny bit up front.
Kenneth Latter making a big improvement from 12th up to 7th as Emily Jones brings it into the pits. Kurt Stenberg, our split 2 winner, is still looking for a reasonable lap here. He's mired back in 19th right now, and surely would be looking for a little bit better than that, especially considering that Liam Milner, who he was fighting with for the lead, is currently in 10th spot.
No improvement for Hayden Veld, stays 3rd, still only a 10th away from provisional pole at the moment. We've seen from pre-qualifying, from practice, and now in this qualifying session, it's tiny margins around here because it's a short, small track. Only really got 3 big braking zones. Quite a few places where you're trying to carry some speed, quite a few traction events, but it all comes together when the lap time is a minute 12 that a couple of tenths is a lot of time for this lap, for this track.
Yeah, and it means that you really have to try something significantly different at one or two corners in order to get it done. Sometimes it just comes down to your line through the first chicane, I find.
Which consistency.
Yeah, consistency too. But I think
you've got to do every corner right on a good lap.
And that's hard to do in the first sector as well, with the amount of flow, throttle control, keeping the car on a neutral platform that you need to do through turns 4, 5, all the way out to turn 7. But I have found that aggression across the curbs at turn 1 and 2 is key to setting you up for a good lap. I mean, we'll see it here with Stephen Banks. See how much of the curb he cuts. That is a legal line that he is taking. No off track. Really, the track limit is the guardrail on the inside of turn 1, and it's amazing how close drivers get to that. The amount of IndyCar onboards I've watched where they are just kissing that guardrail at the apex of turn 1 is amazing. But I think if you're able to get turn 1 and 2 right, that at least sets you up for a good lap. It's all about keeping the momentum up through this section that Jones is demonstrating.
Yeah, Emily Jones is sitting in second place at the moment, just a tenth away from the pole time.
Looks like this isn't a fast lap.
Yeah, looks okay.
She took the wide line down the back stretch there, which I figured from practice would be a sign that the lap wasn't going to be a quick one. They were just preparing for another. But I don't know. Jones's sectors are looking all right. We'll see if this is an improvement for her. It won't be, but she was very close to her best time. Less than a tenth. And there's the lap that Kurt Stenberg is looking for. Just improved to P8.
Justin Clean's in 13th at the moment, and he's on first flying lap after a new set of tyres. So out lap and then this lap. He's in search of a little bit of improvement, which I think he's found through the middle sector there, up on his personal best. And then you just throw it into the chicane and hope for a good run off the final corner. As we've seen, from the final corner to the timing line is a long run. The timing line's closer to turn 1 than it is to the final corner.
Yeah, I've had to catch myself a couple of times watching cars come up to the line. Like, oh, is that the start-finish line? No, couple more meters towards it. McLean with a rough start to that lap, running a bit deep in turn 1 and clattering across the curbs at turn 2. Jared Lamprey having a good performance in this session so far, sits P7, and Russell Pepperell has just made an improvement up to P4. Dylan Walker joining Liam Milner at Momentum Racing is going to try his best to get into the provisional top 10 here. But that is definitely an outlap time of a 1 minute 20.5. Nice and smooth, tapping the brakes again to keep the rotation going. O'Sullivan has maintained the top spot in qualifying Group 1 from pretty much the get-go. And he hasn't made huge improvements. It's been incremental over time. Is this going to be a big time here from O'Sullivan? It will not be. 1 minute 12.7. It looks like the pace is almost gone from the track here for a lot of these drivers.
Bell just had a quicker lap time disallowed because of track limits. Interesting to see. Drivers improving at the moment include Dylan Walker and Ryan Nielsen. Stephen Banks just lining up to begin a flying lap. Hayden Veld just finishing one.
There we go. P2 for Hayden Veld. Dispatches.
Might have got a nice little slipstream there, right? Down the back straight and then on the front straight.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a toe for Veld. Good placement.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I think slipstreaming is going to be very important around here. The straights, this is a short circuit, so they're not long straights, but they're long enough that the slipstream really plays a part. Kenneth Latta with an improvement from 10th to 4th. Lovely job there. And Hunter Salvatore, who is just trying to stay in that top 10 at the moment. See what he can do. Tight line on the way out. Looks like he's coming into pit lane, though. And with just a minute and 30 or so remaining on the timer for Group 1, will not be able to get back out there and set another time unless he's very quick about it. Kobe Williams across the line, 1:12.9. He will stay where he is for the moment.
Quick first sector on the flying laps for Adam Briggs and Kurt Stenberg at the moment.
Let's see if there's going to be any improvement here from Latta, from Stenberg, from anyone outside this top 3. Emily Jones doesn't improve on her final lap. Stephen Banks improves to P15 ahead of Adam Briggs here, who's just making his way up to the line now. 1:12.7. That's just half a tenth or so off from his fastest time, and Kenneth Latta will abandon that final lap as Stenberg goes off the track at turns 9 and 10, and that's going to be lap done for him. He will start this race no higher than 9th spot, and considering we still have an entire group of drivers left to come, the top drivers from pre-qualifying, there's every chance that Stenny and those around him will be sent a bit further back in the field.
Yeah, only a couple of minutes left in this session for the first group of drivers. Liam Milner in the 13 seconds is not going to make much improvement there. Terry Marsh could improve, Dylan Gray could improve, Justin McLean could improve. We're looking at Dylan Gray right now.
Oh, a bit of oversteer on the way into turn 11 there. He's going to commit to the end of the lap, but I don't think this is going to be a fast one now.
Get out of my head, Reece Gardner. I was about to say exactly that at exactly the same time.
Sometimes it's dog eat dog in this commentary box. No improvement for Dylan Gray. Terry Marsh across the line, 1:12.8. Nice improvement there. He was 20th, now he is 13th. Lovely job there from Terry Marsh. And the rest of the field making their way into the pits as Emily Jones commits to one final lap here, 1:12.4. That's an improvement on time, but not in position.
Could still matter for 1 or 2 spots when the other group goes, but it's confidence building as well heading into the race.
And that's going to be Liam Milner done as well. So solid opening stanza to qualifying as Stenny brings it in behind. And at the moment, Ryan O'Sullivan is the pace setter, but on reflection, looking at those gaps in the top 3, barely anything covering O'Sullivan, Veld, and Jones. 8 thousandths in it for provisional P1. Emily Jones only about another half a tenth or so behind, with Latta and Pepperell rounding out your top 5 there. It's all Eclipse, Trans Tasman, and Fishy in the top 5. Top synergy driver thus far, Adam Briggs, with Kobe Williams, Jared Lamprey, Kurt Stenberg, and Hunter Salvatore rounding out your provisional top 10 so far. Now it's time for a break of a few minutes as we review the final times here. Only half a second covering the 20 cars that took part here. The field is mighty close. And I mean, you always expect the times to be close at short tracks like this, but considering all that, 20 cars covered by half a second, I mean, we're in for quite a close qualifying 2 here.
Safety cars out there cutting a lap in between sessions, and big news, it appears the safety car is on slick tyres.
Oh.
The car spends a lot of time on wets in this series, and yeah, we still haven't been able to afford to upgrade to the newest generation BMW M2. Maybe we'll write that into next year's contract.
Yeah, potentially we will. For now, though,
at least it's not a BMW XM.
Yeah, fair enough. So for the moment, the older model of BMW M2, piloted by Daniel Stevens. So considering that this is a single 200k race, I think that increases the potential for safety cars. We haven't had as many safety cars as I expected this season. the racing has largely been quite clean, and big incidents have been down to a minimum, largely. So whether or not we see Dan Stevens out on track again at some point tonight remains to be seen, but he will be at the ready with plenty of knowledge of Portland's pitfalls and foibles.
It's another lap.
His hands. Yes, he does indeed.
Better have the full traction control, stability control engaged, otherwise it wouldn't be a safety car, it'd just be a car.
Yeah, certainly would. And we're hearing from Dan Yeaman, race admin and sometimes producer here on the V8SCOPS broadcast, that the safety car driver reports terrible cold tyre performance. And that makes sense. This older model of BMW M2 on iRacing has become notorious for being an absolute pig on the way into the corners. It understeers like nothing I've ever seen.
And then the rear can feel a little disconnected on throttle on the exit. Apparently the newer one is slightly nicer to drive, but if anything, too easy.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I'm currently in the middle of producing my next Super Serious track guide for Rudskogen, in fact, and the BMW M2, the newer one, is the car that I'm using for it. So I've had plenty of time to get to grips with it, and yeah, it's fun. But it is in some ways a tiny bit too forgiving compared to other cars of its ilk. But I don't know, when you're starting out on your sim racing journey, that's the kind of car that you want, really. One that that lets you know when you're pushing too hard, but doesn't immediately send you to the shadow realm. We have our Group 1 drivers making their way to the end of pit lane as Q2 is about to get underway. The 30-second warning has already been given by race control. Now the safety car has cleared the circuit, and we'll wait for 15 minutes to go in the session and move our way out. Once again, it's an Eclipse car that is going to be leading the charge out of pit lane, and it's Zach Rattray White who's fighting for the championship with Sean Campbell. He is joined by Rain Campbell for Vermilion Esports just behind him, and then Rehan Leonage. So we'll be expecting some good times from these drivers, and there's going to be Kane Kugamiya being an element as well. Kugamiya running a time good enough for 7th in practice, so I'm expecting him to be a factor in the top 10 as well.
Still nothing on the weather radar, still the sun out on the track temperature up to 34 degrees Celsius, just a tiny fraction hotter than it was for the previous group of drivers, but there's also going to be a little bit more rubber down on the road in some places. We started with a not particularly rubbered in racetrack. The practice warm-up session was then only 20 minutes. Then we only had half of the field on track in that first qualifying session. So I think even by now the track's not quite as rubbered in, gripped up as it could be. So there's going to be some evolution from that, but there's also going to be the temperature building up a little bit. And now we build up to the first flying lap of this group.
Zach Rattray White behind the wheel of the Eclipse machine and just kissing that guardrail on the inside of turn 1. Smooth run out, second gear exit, and fighting the oversteer on his way out of turn 3. You see the car just lunging forward on its way into these braking zones. The Eclipse cars are some more of the machines that have gone for that sort of low rake, dropped rear end sort of setup, and it's working quite nicely for Zach here. Already a 10th up in Sector 1 over Ryan O'Sullivan, who's our current provisional pole sitter from Group 1. All the way across the curb here. You can use pretty much all of that paved surface without getting an off track, but evidently stability is the name of the game here for Zach. Into the bumpy braking zone of turn 9, across the curbs here, just put wheels over that unpainted concrete just behind the curbs. Big oversteer on the way into the final corner. That first lap has not gone to plan here for Zach Rattray White. It will not be provisional P1 despite him being up in sectors 1 and 2. Ultimately it's a 112.8, but there is room for improvement there. Rehan Leonage is going to put his first time down, but it doesn't look like it. Oh, it did count. Good enough for P4. William Sapstead's going to join him up there, as will Angus Lawford, but that time from Ryan O'Sullivan's still standing. Also worth pointing out, Sean Campbell, our big dog here in the championship, he came out miles behind everyone else. He's running a slightly different run plan. He's focusing on solo laps at the moment. He's just coming up to the final corners now.
To be driving mostly within himself, very controlled, maybe setting up for this to build into another flying lap thereafter. 112.4 is the number to beat, and he has a 112.8. Put himself into only 25th. I feel like this is the different run plan. It's out lap, build lap, could be going into a real push lap right now, unless there was a mistake we didn't see.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Sean was just taking it easy on that first hot lap. Kane Kugamiya was taking it easy as well with a 1 minute 20 on the timesheets there. There goes Zach Rattray White up to P1, 112.41, 9 thousandths of a second, or well, I guess a hundredth ahead of, oh my god, Angus Lawford to P1. Have you just seen that? 112.368. That is a crazy time from the Project 36 Mustang, and you can see how Lawford feels about that.
I think he had a toe off Matt Ciroli, who's the car just in front of him as well. And, you know, when every 10th matters, you tell me that there's a 10th of a second in a slipstream down the back straight. I'd say there could be even a little bit more than that. So car placement, just as important as being clean and precise for every corner, every braking zone.
Here's Kane Kugamiya. We were riding on board with him at the start of this lap. Let's see how it's gone for him. Campbell makes an improvement for after his build lap to a 112.4. Yeah, pretty much everyone in the top 7 is on a 112.4 or 112.3 right now. Kugamiya, 112.7. That is going to put him up into 20th spot for the moment. Isn't that crazy how Kugamiya on a 112.7, that wouldn't have been a bad time in split 2, but it's only 20th and about 0.3 of a second behind pole.
Rain Campbell on an out lap right now, so he'll come around to start a new flying lap. Brown likewise. Here's a pitting in, so I reckon Campbell's the one to watch as he begins a flying lap with a relatively clear track in front of him.
Yes, this being Rain Campbell in the number 92, currently sits 22nd of our drivers. Nice line into turn 1, bit more of a bounce through turn 2 than he was probably expecting. Barely a hint of oversteer at all through turn 3. The car's looking nice and stable in this opening sector.
PB through Sector 1 for Campbell, and now we're navigating Sector 2 at the moment. Backed it off just a little bit. Still clear track in front of him. Just looks very under control, and I'm used to seeing it be a bit wilder than that. Well, that's not so bad, but it was a 10th lost to his PB through the middle sector. So overall, can this lap be an improvement? I think it requires pulling something out through this final chicane.
Isn't it sometimes the case, though, that we see a lap from someone that looks perfectly smooth and under control?
Wide.
Well, yep, that's wide through the final corner for Rain Campbell. But I've lost count of the amount of times I've looked at a pole position lap for a V8SCOPS round, and there's barely been any complaints from the car at all. It just looks like the driver is just on a Sunday drive, you know. James Scott and Jared Filsell were both very good at pulling off pole position laps like that. Will Buchanan, then, in the 281 for AITX Revolution E-Racing, coming to the line. Under 15 seconds in Sector 1, that's not bad. 112.5 is going to put him into the top 10, 9th spot ahead of Jamie Dyke.
Very nice, and going underneath 15 seconds in the first sector was also Angus Lawford and Zach Rattray White. They're on flying laps at the moment, our 2 quickest drivers. Campbell on the outlap, about to set up for one, so flash of the headlights. Zach Rattray White knows what the dash says. He knows it says he had a really good first sector.
Yes, let's see if that momentum continues here in Sector 2. Kane Kugamiya ahead of him, but doesn't look like he's impeding him any into these final couple of corners. The lap at Portland is over just like that. That's the exit of the final corner and the run onto the start-finish straight. Nice rotation on the way out, but not turning into oversteer. You need that traction as much as possible. 112.336 from Rattray White. Would have caught a bit of slipstream off Cougamere, I reckon. That puts him ahead of Angus Lawford and back on provisional pole.
Lawford's going to get a bit of a slipstream from Mazzaroli here again. Leonage across the line, improves up in third. Lawford improves, no.
Mazzaroli does, though, gaining a couple of spots to 23rd. James Chastaneuf, the next to come across the line here. 22nd on the outside looking in, but now he's going to move up to 14th. Big gain there from the 427.
Middle sector was good for Sean Campbell, who's still just trying to do his own thing, trying to stay away from traffic, but also not really getting any slipstream for it. Only a 10th and some change away from the top, as he currently sits in 6th, and there he shall remain.
Yeah, Campbell's still looking for about 0.2 of a second or so, or even just 1/10 would put him on the front row. So if he can find that, he'll be right up there with Rattray White, Lawford and Leonage. Next lap for Rattray White, it gets even faster. 112.29. This is some incredible pace from the number 17. And he's really making a statement here. He caught up to Sean Campbell in the last few rounds of the championship, and he's really putting his mark on it now.
No improvement for Lawford there as he stayed in it and put in back-to-back runs. Sean Campbell doing the same. Jamie Dyke is in 10th at the moment, and he's up in 9th now with that one.
Steady improvement. Sean Campbell under 15 seconds in Sector 1, so it looks like it may be a good lap. We'll see him cross the line in a moment or so. 1 minute 12.293, no. Oh, 112.31. It looked like our timing software didn't quite catch those extra couple of hundredths, but Sean Campbell doing enough to get on the front row here, and still with 5 minutes to go in the session.
Loxton not quite bringing it all together just yet, down in 26th with a 112.8. He's only half a second away from pole, down in 26th position. Willie Brown, 19th, just begun a flying lap, just over 15 seconds through that first sector, but might get a bit of slipstream to bring some of it back at the end of the lap here. In 19th place, just 4/10 away from pole. 1/10 of a second is gold dust.
Yeah, they're all searching for it at the end of the proverbial rainbow here, but Brown was a little bit wide in the turn 7 hairpin. So remains to be seen whether this will be a good lap for him. You see how much drivers are taking out of those curbs at 9 and 10. They're starting to take some of the grass away beyond those curbs. They are pushing in those fast corners. That's where a lot of the time is around here. Can make or break a lap. To the line goes William Brown, and that's the lap he's looking for, up from 19th to 12th. Not bad at all. Brett Loxton, 112.7, up to 21st place. Just 5 thousandths away from getting into the top 20.
Stacey Boyd in 29th. This is an outlap, just about to begin a flying lap. Only has time left in the session for maybe this and one more, or maybe back-to-back push laps.
William Sapstead, always an element in the top 10 in V8 SCOPS. His teammate Lachlan Pryke getting on the podium in split 2 and managing a reasonable time himself. Across the line, Sapstead will go and remains in 7th with a 112.47.
Buchanan, I think the tyres have left him here and he's pitting in. Things are still going well for Stacey Boyd. Rehan Leonage, no improved sectors all the way around on this lap. Falls 4/10 short of improving. Drivers that I think could, Chastaneuf's about to complete a lap, and then Stacey Boyd, both of those could go up.
Keeping an eye on Zach Rattray White in the meantime as Chastaneuf improves to P12. It's again a good Sector 1 time from Rattray White. 37 seconds or so, Sector 2. This is looking good as he crossed the IndyCar alternate start-finish line there, which also serves as the Sector 2 marker here. Smooth run out of the final corner. The car almost looks like it's just sort of lazily drifting that rear end. That's the sign of a perfect exit in a V8 supercar. 1 minute 12.267. And that's going to put even more distance between himself and Sean Campbell. But it's not much distance, it has to be said.
Stacey Boyd put a 112.8 down. Here's Jordan Mazzaroli. Looks like he swapped running order with Angus Lawford, who was benefiting from the slipstream very greatly earlier on. That's a very good time from Mazzaroli, 12.3.
Excellent stuff. He joins Angus Lawford in the top 4, and Lawford improved on that lap as well to a 112.3. This is some fantastic form from Lawford and Mazzaroli. Really impressive. James Chastaneuf to the line again, 112.5. That's going to put him 1 position up ahead of Ryan Campbell. With 1 minute to go in the session. This is a single race server, so the drivers will be able to finish the lap they're on when the timer hits 0. Sean Campbell's still looking for a bit of extra pace, and this is going to be, I think, his final lap. William Brown and Brett Loxton coming up to the line to start their final laps now, so we're still waiting for a little bit more from these guys.
Lawford and Mazzaroli running together appears to have benefited both of them. And I think this is going to be setting up for a very final lap. They lost a bit of time through the middle sector here, so maybe just cooling off the tyres on that lap. They both crossed the line in time to have one final go at it. Are they going to stay committed?
Can William Sapstead get to the line in time as well to start another lap? Same for Andrew Dutch, who's down in 18th at the moment. 3, 2, 1, and that is going to be 0 left in the session. Ryan Campbell, the first to take the checkered flag, and that is not an improvement for his final lap. Kane Kugamiya next to the line, looking to break into the top 20 after some good form in practice. 112.5 is going to put him into 11th for his final time. Stacey Boyd pulling into pit lane. It's also been noted from Dan Yeaman that we have a tie down to the 1,000th of a second between Mazzaroli and Leonage for 4th place, which is quite insane around a track this short. Will Buchanan next to the line. Can he break into the top 10 on this one? 112.5. That's not quite going to do it. And Sean Campbell and Zach Rattray-White both get into the pits. They weren't happy with those final laps, so they will stay in the same order at the front. But here comes Mazzaroli and Lawford. They're both going to go into pit lane. No improvements on that lap for either of them, but that is no shade on what has been a fantastic qualifying performance for these two.
So Sapstead might be the last driver that we see actually try to complete a lap. No PB sectors around here on this one for him. But
another small improvement there. Didn't grant him any extra positions. And Andrew Dutch.
It doesn't count. Seemed like it didn't count. His best lap didn't move.
Oh, okay. This was Campbell's final lap. Just a bit deep there in the final corners. You touch that grass, you get the off track, and that's going to be the end of it. So,
unfortunately, I actually saw him parked out there when one of the other cars was going past. You had to wait for a gap in the traffic to get to pit in.
So that would have cost him even more.
George Russell lifted 100 meters earlier.
Yeah, that he did. I've heard about those shenanigans in F1 qualifying. We also saw an improvement from Andrew Dutch up to P16. But here's your grid then. Those don't look like Zach Rattray-White and Sean Campbell's cars. I believe those are the split top two there. But we'll fix that ever so briefly and then grab the grid here. Fantastic performances from our top 5. Zach Rattray-White and Sean Campbell, the championship protagonists, will be our front row, only separated by about 42 thousandths of a second. There we go. That is quite the gap there. Very small indeed. Angus Lawford and Jordan Mazzaroli will share the second row here. Best split one qualifying performances of their careers for the two of them. They should be very proud of themselves for that. Rayhan Leonage and Ryan O'Sullivan round out your top 6. O'Sullivan, the fastest driver from Group 1. Haydenveld, his teammate at Eclipse, is going to join him there in 7th with William Sapstead alongside. And then Emily Jones and Jamie Dyke round out your top 10.
6th row on the grid, there's Kane Kugamiya in 11th, Will Buchanan in 12th, James Chastanov is 13th, Rain Campbell 14th on the grid. Tiny margins throughout the field. Teammates at Phoenix Racing Team, William Brown and Andrew Dutch are 15th and 16th alongside each other there. Ken Latta in 17th, Russell Pepperell in 18th. And then row 10 on the grid is Adam Briggs and Kobe Williams.
Just outside the top 20, it's Jared Lamprey in car 97, joined by Kurt Stenberg, our split 2 winner. Brett Loxton behind him with Hunter Salvatore for company on row number 12. We have Liam Milner, who finished on the podium in split 2, starting 25th alongside Mark Poynton for Frog Leap Juiced Racing. Got Stacey Boyd, one of our resident Americans, in 27th alongside Terry Marsh. And then Justin McLean and Dylan Walker will round out our top 30. Just a few more cars to go. Stephen Banks in 31st place alongside Roger Forbett. And then it's Dylan Gray and Aaron Gilbert, 33rd and 34th. The last car to take to the grid in 35th being Ryan Nielsen, who it was another one of our split 2 podium getters. 7/10ths in it. Between 35th and 1st. Incredibly close stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing what can be done here. 30 seconds to go on the grid timer, and we'll wait for all of our drivers to make their way onto this grid. 33 degrees Celsius track temperature, which is going to be right in the ballpark for a good run to the start of the race here. But we are hearing that there is a chance of rain in about an hour or so, which is going to be very close to the finish. Just a few seconds to go, and the lights will go up. The green flag will fly. The first time V8SCOPS has ever raced at Portland International Raceway. And we've gotten some of our most fantastic racing and fantastic qualifying performances we've ever seen. It all comes down to this, though, as the power is put down for Zach Rattray-White, but not Sean Campbell. A super slow start from the man who dominated the first couple of rounds of the season. He is being swallowed up by the rest of the top 10. They're 3 wide almost on the way into turn 1. Goes to 2 by 2 by 2 as Zach Rattray-White skips away with Angus Lawford in tow. Everyone else behind sorting themselves out reasonably in the first couple of corners. Not many drivers losing a ton of positions, but Sean Campbell and Jordan Mazzaroli did not get off to a good start. They are now 8th and 9th after starting 2nd and 4th.
Just pure wheel spin from Sean Campbell. I think Mazzaroli almost got kind of caught a little bit behind him, might have bogged down a bit, but everyone after that was relatively clean. There's still plenty of time for some action here, and we'll get it. Kobe Williams spun around.
Yeah, and that's through turn 7. Looks like we had Jarrett Lamprey and Brett Loxton losing positions out of that one as well. Up the front of the field, Angus Lawford charging. A great qualifying performance, and it's translated into a great performance on lap 1 so far. He is only 0.3 of a second behind Zach Rattray-White as they come out of the final corner for the first time, and everyone's super close here at the front of this field. The top 21 positions are bracketed within a second of each other.
Whoa, okay, great camera angle, and we've got heading for pit lane, Terry Marsh, because of a black flag. He might have jumped the start or cut too much of the opening part of the lap. So he's in.
Only car to have to visit pit lane thus far, so that will be a drive-through for jumping the start there. Moving back to Sean Campbell here is looking at the back of Emily Jones, trying to get further back into the top 10. And this is the onboard here from the Grid and Go Mustang. Not only was he a little bit slower off the mark, reacting to the lights going out, but so much wheel spin. I mean, he lost about 3 or 4 positions in one go there before he'd even gotten to turn 1.
And Mazzaroli had a poor getaway, but from that angle it didn't look it because of how much worse Sean Campbell's were. So both of them got swallowed up. There's Kugamiya right behind Jamie Dyke.
this chain of cars from Dyke in 10th back to Ryan Campbell in 14th. Only cars outside of our leader, Rattray White, to remain in their starting positions for the moment. Ryan O'Sullivan setting the pace at a 112.7 there as we check in with Dylan Gray a bit further back in this field. Trying to get into 22nd position versus Mark Poynton here, all over the curb at turn 3. You see how hard he's concentrating here, and he's one of the drivers who's using a sequential shift lever in his rig, but it seems he has to reach quite a ways to grab it.
It's in the passenger seat almost. Don't have to make too many shifts through here when you hold third gear. That's what quite a few of the drivers are doing. Go back down to second as he shows the nose.
Tight line into turn 7. But a bit earlier on the throttle for Mark Poynton. Ray, though, gets the slipstream down this back stretch, which may give him a chance into the final corner or so. Needs to keep an eye out for the likes of Liam Milner as well. One of our Split 2 competitors here that moved up into Split 1. Involved with Hunter Salvatore. It looks like a trade of position between those two on the opening lap.
So everyone will have started with a lot of fuel on board. Can probably go pretty long in this opening stint with the 80% fuel tank cap. So probably a little while before we expect to see those compulsory pit stops get underway. And if you're in the back half of the field and you take your stop and you put a bunch of fuel in, you'll be a lap down very quickly. So
Replay
Kobe Williams
here.
there with Loxton behind.
This is under review from race control. Just a little tap at the apex there. Seems like Lamprey spun on his own up ahead too.
So it's a bit aggressive from Loxton, but it did kind of become 3 wide as they went in there. Zach Rattray White beginning to build a lead, 7/10. Angus Lawford, whose great start has him up in second. I think he's beginning on race pace to come under a little bit of pressure here. Rehan Leonage just behind him there. Ryan O'Sullivan with the fastest lap of the race in 4th. Henveld in 5th. So doing a good job here. But is there a little bit of fuel saving happening from some of those cars behind? They're all over him irregardless.
Yeah, I did see that. Rehan Leonage lifting a little bit earlier before the braking zone. You know, you got to think about so much with this 200k race format with 2 mandatory pit stops. You can take them at any time you want after the start of lap 2 and before the start of the final lap. But if you fuel save a bit early on, you can potentially try to extend your stint, or at least give yourself a bit more of a margin to play with. Sometimes the margins can be very tight in these cars, especially around tracks that are so short. But if anything, I think that increases the potential of the pit window as well. On longer tracks, you will have traditionally a narrower pit window because you're covering more distance, you're burning more fuel. Not necessarily the case here at Portland.
On board with Kurt Stenberg, fortunate enough to be in Split 1. Made 2 positions so far this race. An incredibly unique posture. He's ended up just behind his teammate in Russell Pepperell.
Just inside the top 20 as well, 2 spots gained thus far. He's got Justin McLean right behind him though, someone who is up 8 positions right now. We were riding on board with Dylan Gray a little earlier, and in fact he is the hard charger in this field. He's up 11 places with only 6 laps of the race complete. Some very good runnings going on there from Dylan Gray. And we're keeping our eyes on the fight here with the number 60 of Hunter Salvatore. It looks like Brett Loxton's going to be trying a move on him here. Big dive at the inside of turn 7, and Salvatore gives him room. A little bit of a drop in the grass there for Stephen Banks just behind, teammate to Dylan Gray at Pacific Esports Racing. The battle continues between Salvatore and Loxton. Aaron Gilbert not far ahead of these guys either, another member of the Team Jinx Shifters outfit, and Dylan Walker up 2 places. Qualifying didn't go ideally for him, but he's right in the thick of it in this battle towards the back of the field.
I think what Brett Loxton has learned is if you're going to get down the inside of turn 7, really get down the inside of it in there at turn 7.
Absolutely. There's plenty of space to do it. Just tapping the brakes between turns 1 and 2 to keep the rotation going. Checking in with Andrew Dutch, meanwhile, down 5 spots. Something has gone wrong there for the number 51, who made some nice improvements at the end of qualifying. But from what I'm hearing from the producer, we're about to see why he went down the order. So this was at turns 1 and 2. He just, there was some understeer on the way into turn 1 there, potentially carrying too much speed in, and he had to cut the inside of turn 2 in order to avoid an incident. So that would have given him a slowdown, more time that he had to bleed away. Rayan Leonage then, 3rd spot. And at the moment, it seems like these guys are almost getting stuck behind Angus Lawford as Zach Rattray-White has brought the lead out to over a second now. But Leonage, we noticed him fuel saving a couple of laps ago. Looks like he might be doing the same thing here, but it seems that Ryan O'Sullivan is not looking to wait. He's going to force Leonage wide through turn 1, try and get the over-under done out of turn 2. Not quite going to happen for Ryan O'Sullivan.
O'Sullivan will have had a pretty good view of this, and maybe he's decided that I'm not trying to save as much as Leonage, and had a bit of a dive at him at turn 1 there. There was a difference of speed going in, but not quite enough for O'Sullivan to make that pass.
Just cranking on the wheel here through turn 6, and then the dive at turn 7. Does the same thing we just saw Brett Loxton doing, and moves up into P3. Leonage, I don't think, will be too fussed about that. He's focusing on fuel saving in the early part of this race, and losing a couple of positions here and there isn't going to hurt, but still needs to keep that average pace up lest he lose too much track position for the fuel save to no longer be viable.
Now Leonage sandwiched between the teammates of O'Sullivan and Hayden Veld there. Veld might be next to try to get a wriggle on if he thinks Leonage is saving too much. Got William Sapstead and Emily Jones here as well. And Sean Campbell has stabilised this race just quietly in 8th after that poor getaway. He's really not too far away from the podium and even from the race lead. He's 4.6 seconds behind the leader, 3.5 seconds behind second place.
Yeah, and Angus Lawford in that second place has been granted a little breathing room with that little exchange between O'Sullivan and Leonage. They cost each other a bit of time there, and so the Project 36 machine, resplendent in its purple and sort of neon lime, I guess you could say, is looking pretty comfortable out there. As they find their way into turn 7, there's a lot of nose to tail going on, but not much in the way of passes. I think the driver's just getting settled into the rhythm of the race here, or waiting for the clearer opportunity for passing that is the braking zone into turn 1. You can pull moves into turn 9, as we saw in split 2 here, but it seems the split 1 drivers aren't as keen to get alongside this early on.
The different lines sometimes for driving off that final corner. Some say a little tighter and straighten it up, and others sort of use that opening width of the road to really carve out a big swooping arc on throttle. And it all ends up very similar, as we saw based on how close the times were in qualifying. Still a gap opens between first and second, a gap between second and third, and very, very few gaps elsewhere in this large field, 35 supercars.
First penalty of the race has been awarded to Brett Loxton for his contact with Kobe Williams. 15 seconds worth of time to be added to either the end of the race or one of his pit stops. Loxton has just come into the pit lane with a 12.3 second stop, and I think that might be his first scheduled stop here. I guess he's looking to maybe do a super long second or third stint here, but that's maybe going to put him on the back foot a bit earlier on. Keeping our eyes on this fight here for 14th place. Ken Latta chasing Rain Campbell and dragging William Brown and Adam Briggs with him as well. Campbell has held on to 14th throughout the whole race so far. Those last 10 laps running, but let's see if Ken Latta has anything in the tank to try and pull a move on him here. It seems the gap is starting to grow a bit to James Chastaneuf ahead, and these guys don't want to lose that slipstream.
So a group forming here as the top 10 gets a little bit away from them.
Nice move from Dylan Gray on the replay here. Gets ahead of Andrew Dutch after quite a few laps spent in the wheel tracks of the 51. And we move back to the battle for 14th then. Chastaneuf has started to lose touch with the cars ahead of him as well, so there's a lot of potential for this group to catch up to him. Aaron Gilbert and Liam Milner just traded spots as well, and it looks like Milner has lost further positions to his teammate Dylan Walker, so some stuff going on outside the top 20 here. This is Milner through turn 7. Was this a spin or some otherwise problem? Yes, it was. He caught the curb between turns 7 and 8. That's something that we haven't seen happen yet today, but these curbs have proven to be treacherous already, and I guess you got to look out for that one too.
Yeah, interesting, different to what we were seeing. It's the curb after that they almost completely leap over that looks dangerous in the wet and looks a little ungainly, particularly if you're battling side by side down that straight. One thing I noticed is the pace drop-off we've had. So the fastest lap of the race is a 12.7 from Ryan O'Sullivan, but his last lap a 13.5. Everyone is sort of 8/10 away from where they were on lap 2 or 3. The tyres have heated up, the track keeps getting hotter, up to 37 Celsius, and that's Campbell way wide again, like he was in qualifying.
Oh no! Oh, gets on the brakes and avoids getting it into the tyres. A lucky escape for Sean Campbell, but that is going to drop him even further down the field, down to 17th now. And he'll better hope that those Trans-Tasman cars behind don't catch up to him by the time he gets to turn 1. It looks like they won't, but that's far from ideal for Campbell. Behind him, move potentially getting made there on Stenberg by Justin McLean. Meanwhile, for second place, Ryan O'Sullivan has moved past Angus Lawford with a huge dive at turn 1. Room given, and Lawford backs out at exactly the right time, manages to keep Rehan Leonage behind him as well. But very brave dive there, as it looks like Leonage is going to put the move on Lawford right here. Yeah, Lawford, I think, has been struggling to keep those tyres under control. These cars notorious for being incredibly sensitive to those temperature fluctuations. And if you don't look after the rears, then you're going to have a lot of trouble later on. Lawford, quick over 1 lap here at Portland. It seems, though, that he may have to look after those rears a little more going forward.
Yeah, that's that pace drop-off. Might be moving the balance if you're, wearing out mainly your left side tyres or mainly your rear tyres, or just overheating them, as happens so often with these cars. There's so much movement and an angle that the temperature builds up, and the tyres often end up on the wrong side of their optimal temperature, but you can't back off. You're trying to race. If you backed off to cool them, you'd lose more time than just continuing to push them. But it becomes a noticeable effect, and all of that puts Zach Rattray-White in a really nice place of a 3-second race lead ahead of O'Sullivan, Leonage and Lawford, now back into 4th.
And looks like Lawford has been able to keep up with O'Sullivan and Leonage in the short term, but I see Hayden Veld and William Sapstead getting a little bit closer to him, so there's going to be more potential for moves here. This is on board with Veld. You see Lawford in the distance just up ahead, and have a look at the way the car moves up and down in this braking zone. Yes, that was the car lunging forward under brakes, but there is quite a big hump right when they get on the brakes there. It's very easy to lock the wheels into that section of the circuit, and Veld is pushing super hard on the power as well, which may not be helping his rear tyre health. Speaking of health, Dylan Walker's race is looking a little bit more healthy here on the way into turn 7. gets past the Team Jinx Shifters car of Aaron Gilbert. Not without a tiny bit of contact, but both he and Liam Milner now ahead of Gilbert and Hunter Salvatore. Back on board with Hayden Veld, he is working that wheel like a madman, which I think at this stage of the race, when the tyres are starting to go off, understandable, but it's leaving him open to an attack from Sapstead.
It is, go through the left-hander, and then of course Sapstead thinks, can I get down the inside of turn 7? Got half a car there.
Level on the exit. They both cost themselves time there. Emily Jones will be looking for a potential move here over the curb at turn 8. And just about rubbing panels, these two, so close down this section. What kind of bravery is there going to be into turn 9 here? Hayden Veld and William Sapstead coming together through the S's, and Veld just keeps it on the black stuff there, but Emily Jones gives him a tap in the rear. She has arrived.
That's more than I ever needed to see of the spindle on the rear axle. Really, really brave from William Sapstead to hang it there and get past Hayden Veld.
Yeah, some good racing between those two. This is the kind of racing that you can expect at Portland in just about any category of racing. This battle for 8 stretching all the way down to P12 at the moment. Chastaneuf just hanging on to the back of it, just within slipstream range. I think now it's just a case of tyre management as the track temperature is continuing to rise.
For example, the fastest car on track is Kobe Williams in 35th of 35 because he has a new set of tyres on. 13.3 is significantly quicker than Zach Rattray White or Ryan O'Sullivan or Rehan Leonage. So if we stay green, is there an undercut chance there?
I think there is. I mean, if we're seeing those kinds of times from Kobe Williams there, 4 tenths quicker than our drivers at the front of the field. Yeah, I mean, especially in a battle like this one for P5, pitting a lap or two earlier is going to make bank in terms of track position for you. Meanwhile, this is an incident here under review between Brett Loxton, I believe Hunter Salvatore as well, and the 201 of Ryan Nielsen. Resulted in a bit of 3 wide down the start-finish straight there, some minor taps through the S's.
One could suggest the car on the outside turned in a little bit too early, felt the contact, and then aimed for a little bit of return serve. Few ways to look at that one, and again, it shows it's so challenging to go side by side through a fast chicane like that, which is why that battle we saw between Sapstead and Veld was so impressive.
We saw Sean Campbell at a standstill in pit lane, taking his first stop after his race performance has been compromised due to the poor getaway off the line and the running off track at turn 11. And I notice that his pit stop time is 17 seconds. That suggests to me that he has put more fuel in the car than Loxton and Williams have. Adam Briggs, the next car to take the first of the 2 mandatory pit stops for this race. And I wonder if he's going to go for a long second stint like it seems Sean Campbell is doing.
Yeah, so the pace drop-off in the hot temperatures noticeable. There will be a bit of an undercut to be had from those new set of tyres. Even if the other driver reacts sort of 2 or 3 laps later, I feel like there's a second and a half to be had, probably sort of 7/10 of a second per lap in the first couple of laps of those tyres before they also become heat-soaked and a little bit slippery.
Yeah, I'm seeing all throughout the field drivers just managing to keep those tyre temperatures under control. No strangers to swaying around in hot track temperatures. Keeping an eye on Kane Kugamiya for the moment. Sits in P10 right now, and there's a bit of side-by-side going on ahead. It looks like Hayden Veld and Emily Jones are going to go toe-to-toe in turn 1. Jones has the inside line, which should give her the preferred entry into the first corner. And it looks like Hayden Veld is going to let her have that one. He'll be focusing, I think, a bit further forward in the next stint, but Jones has had some great pace in the first part of this race. It's taken her a while to gain those 3 positions, one of which came from Campbell's bad start. But it seems now she has some clear air ahead of her. She can set about chasing down William Sapstead. Project 36 has had an excellent run in the top 10 here. Jordan Mazzaroli, though he did lose positions coming into the first turn, has managed to maintain a top 10 position. And it looks like he'll be helped a little bit by this little exchange between Buchanan and Kugamiya, which will bring Shastanerf back into the fight for the last couple of positions outside the top 10.
Jamie Dyke went defensive. Kugamiya held around the outside, and then Buchanan thought, well, maybe I can pop down the inside on Kugamiya here, but just didn't quite get the space for that one.
Good exit from Kugamiya, puts a bit more space between himself and Buchanan. A bit too far back for a move on Jamie Dyke into the first corner, though. Next car into pit lane is Justin McLean from 19th spot.
Look at the pace Sean Campbell's just done with his new tyres.
Oh yeah, that's huge. That's his personal best of the race so far on a 112.7, and he's got clear air. No drivers harassing him from behind or impeding him from in front. So this could be the start of a potential resurrection of the race for Sean Campbell. Remember, he had that long pit stop? Well, it looks like Adam Briggs had a pit stop that was even longer, and Justin McLean's pit stop longer still. 19.5 seconds for Briggs, 25 seconds for Justin McLean. There's a ton of fuel going into that car. I don't think we'll be seeing him back in pit lane anytime soon. Side by side again here. This is William Brown trying to get past Kenneth Ladder. But Ladder defends the run into the S, and Brown is forced to take to the grass. Opens himself up to an attack from Pepperell.
And then Stenberg just behind that, and then Dylan Gray behind that. It's up 15 positions with some of these pit stops playing out. That's Russell Pepperell jumping into the lane. Latter left plenty of space in the chicane, and Brown was just on the wrong side to be able to capitalise from it.
Meanwhile, car 201, Ryan Nielsen. He's been looking to move his way even further forward here, but into turn 7, looks like the rear's locked up. Potentially a mistimed downshift, and he ends up losing some 2 or 3 positions out of that one mistake.
Brown and Latter here still as we approach turn 7. Always interesting as the track has that switchback opportunity and opens up really wide on the way in.
Just getting over the lip of the curb there was Latter, and Brown's going to have a great run down the back stretch here, but got boxed in a little and had to take the wider line. So doesn't look like there's going to be a move presenting itself at the S-bend this time. If anything, Brown lifting off a little bit earlier, doing a tiny bit of fuel saving. Not the only Phoenix car that's been saving fuel out there. Lots of grass usage for Latter, and that's going to ruin his run through the corner. And in fact, he's going to go for pit lane out of that one.
So does Rain Campbell. That's the car just up the road. 64 kilometres an hour is the pit lane speed limit, but it's not an especially long one. So the pit lane transit time isn't too aggressive. What is aggressive here is it's such a short lap that you take your pit stop and you're 2/3 of the way to being a lap down. And in fact, Jared Lamprey is.
Yes. But he's just come through pit lane. And he was a long way back in the field after it went wrong for him on the opening lap as well. We still have 34 cars on the lead lap and 24 cars yet to visit pit lane. Of course, Terry Marsh took a drive-through for jumping the start there. Hunter Salvatore with a 5-second penalty for an unsafe rejoin versus Brett Loxton back on lap 7.
This is about 5 laps in a row that Sean Campbell has been a second a lap quicker than the drivers he was stuck behind. That is a monumental undercut from Campbell.
Certainly is, and I think we're starting to see drivers respond to that. Kugamiya into the pit lane then. Kurt Stenberg follows him in. Seeing a lot of split strategies from many of the teams out here. course, most of these drivers will be managing their own strategy. Hunter Salvatore will come in for his pit stop, and remains to be seen if he'll serve that 5-second penalty at that stop. It's still very close between Rehan Leonage and Ryan O'Sullivan. They put a bit more distance between themselves and Angus Lawford, but a bit of lap traffic in the form of Jared Lamprey just ahead of them. Will either of them respond by taking their first pit stop on this lap?
Lamprey's got those new tyres, so he shouldn't be holding them up too much. Super quick stop from Kugamiya, by the way.
That's 12.2 seconds. That's that is one of the quicker stops that we've seen from the first run of stops here. So it looks like Kugamiya not committing to as much of a long middle stint as Campbell is, but will probably be able to respond nicely with a reasonable stop at the final calling. But Campbell will have the advantage. He'll have less fuel to take at that final stop there. Penalty has been served by Hunter Salvatore at his pit stop, which has just been confirmed from race control, as Jordan Mazzaroli, Jamie Dyke, James Chastaneuf, Andrew Dutch, Dylan Gray, Stephen Banks and Stacey Boyd make pit lane a hive of activity on this lap.
Makes a lot of sense before the halfway point of the race to serve that penalty in race, because then it's cleared and gone if we get a safety car in the back half of the race. Whereas if you hold on to it and hope for field spread, but then we get compressed late in the race, it'll be an even larger penalty then than if you took it in race. So on the probabilities of which way this race could play out, if you're still early in the race, you're better off serving it because of everything that could happen later.
Yeah, indeed. If your penalty's in the single digits, just take it. Kobe Williams and Mark Poynton out of pit lane recently, but a lot more recently for Poynton. 2 laps done. Kobe Williams pitted 12 laps ago. He was one of the first drivers to really make a move for pit lane, and you can see the power of the undercut already, the speed that Poynton is carrying through turn 6 there. Meanwhile, on the other side of the track, Emily Jones and Will Buchanan, next drivers into the pit lane, and they'll be joined by Aaron Gilbert. So it'll be interesting to see how close Sean Campbell manages to get to them.
Another really quick stop there. Emily Jones, basically just the tyres and the fuel that covers it. 11-ish seconds. Compared to Campbell, 17, so he carries a bit more fuel, and then some of those even longer stops we talk about. Kugamiya, Dyke, Mazzaroli, and then Sean Campbell has himself ahead of Pepperell and Chastaneuf, so not bad at the moment to be the 5th running car that's stopped.
Yeah, not bad at all. And you will remember he was 17th when his incident happened. Now he's up to 15th. So when we have our next couple of drivers coming into pit lane, that may grant him an extra couple of spots on top of that. Kurt Stenberg battles with Adam Briggs as we see Lawford, Sapstead and Veld get their first stops out of the way with 24 laps completed for them. Meanwhile, Emily Jones, leader of the cars that have pitted, coming to the end of her outlap here. Slightly narrower exit from that final corner, but it helps her to straighten up the car a little earlier too. We're told that we are past the critical lap now. On the 80% fuel tank restriction, drivers can do 40 to 41 laps. So we have about that left to go. So if you pit any time from now, you will likely be able to get home on fuel, but you will still have another pit stop to contend with. Yeah, Hayden Veld's just dropped hard there. He's just come out of the pits. I think he might have gotten involved with cars already at race speed.
I think it was door-to-door with James Chastaneuf, perhaps. That was dramatic. Hayden Veld's not well pleased with it. Driver who was inside of the top 5.
Oh, hello, Shasti. Oh. No. Whoa, okay, so there was contact in the end. Veld probably would have been better served just turning in a little bit later there, but I understand his need to get to the apex. Just a bit of an awkward interaction between those two. Sapstead and Mazzaroli reasonably close on strategy, with Sapstead super fresh tyres on that car, just coming out to complete the first lap on them, and Mazzaroli 3 laps done now on those tyres. Not quite as much of a difference yet to see any pace difference there. Further up the field though, Ryan O'Sullivan, that's a long stop for him, or longer than Jones at least. Remember, Jones only just putting enough fuel in to cover the tyre change, and so that's given her track position in the short term.
And a new fastest lap of the race, so a relatively lighter car, clear track, brand new tyres, a 112.6 for Jones. That kind of pace, eventually, you know, Zach Rattray-White and some of those others can't hang it out too long when the undercut is that severe. Rattray-White had a sort of a 3-second lead before the pit stops began. Still got to be a little careful. Leonage in, just waiting on Brown, Walker, and race leader Zach Rattray-White.
Race controllers reviewing that incident between James Chastaneuf and Hayden Veld. Be interesting to see what kind of outcome emerges from that. Leonage, another driver who's only really put in enough fuel to cover the tyre change. A 12-second stop for him, and he moves straight over to the racing line here. Portland, one of the tracks on iRacing that doesn't have a purple cone at the pit exit or pit exit blend. Just by the nature of pit exit here, you can go straight out onto the racetrack coming out of the pits. So he wasted no time getting back onto the racing line and stays ahead of Jones. But this battle between Jordan Mazzaroli and William Sapstead shows no signs of stopping, as our leader Rattray-White has brought it into pit lane. William Brown and Dylan Walker now the only cars left to come in, and I wonder if they'll join him. It looks like they may not, unless what I'm looking at on my end are lapped cars, and it looks like they are. Yeah, Dylan Walker, quite some time behind to the tune of 33 seconds. Confirmed William Brown is staying out. Will Dylan Walker find his way into the pits? Looks like he won't.
So what's this pit stop time going to be for Zach Rattray-White? Already longer than Leonage by a bit. Is he going to cede that track position, or is he measured it perfectly to keep it?
Full speed for Ryan Leonage, and he's going to zip into the lead on the way into turn 1. The fuel save plus the quick stop for Rayhan, giving him the effective lead of the race here. And things have really closed up between all of these drivers. Rattray-White in between Leonage and Jones, with O'Sullivan and Lawford in close pursuit. And Kugamir and Dyke will now be joined by Mazzaroli and Sapstead. Some good pace from the 61 and the 81.
This is decent for O'Sullivan because he's not that far behind Zach Rattray-White, and he's got about the same amount of fuel. The only problem is he's got Emily Jones in the way, who we know is 5 or 6 seconds shorter on fuel. They don't really need to worry too much about Rayhan Leonage, who's only 1.5 seconds up the road from them, 5 seconds shorter on fuel than them. So Rattray-White and O'Sullivan ceded a little bit of track position here, but as it plays out towards the second compulsory pit stop, it'll come back towards them, and Rattray-White will have monstrous tyres right about now.
That he will. And unfortunately, we saw up the top of the screen a few moments ago, James Chastaneuf getting a 15-second penalty from race control for the contact with Hayden Veld at turn 2. Dylan Walker just about cleanses the field, taking his stop there, and looks to be a length of, around about what we've been seeing from our drivers from 3rd to 5th, 16, 17 seconds. It just leaves William Brown out there, 29 laps into the stint on his 30th. I'm surprised those tyres have managed to hold on, but he is setting 114s right now, and our fastest drivers are setting mid-112s, as O'Sullivan is going to pass Emily Jones at turn 7.
Slightly newer tyres for O'Sullivan, slightly quicker, and up into 4th.
But Jones is coming back at him here. The opportunity doesn't quite present itself for a run into this fast corner, which traditionally isn't a passing opportunity in most of the cars that race here. William Brown finally comes into pit lane. and we'll find our way through to Kugamiya, Dyke, Mazzaroli, and Sapstead. Brown's going to come out a long way behind these drivers. His pit stop is complete though. It looks like he did the same thing Jones did. Just enough fuel to cover the tyre change, and that's going to try and preserve some track position for him. He will come out in 16th place, just behind Latter and Stenberg.
These four are together on track in reverse pit stop order, so the fresher tyres at the back of the pack there with Sapstead and Mazzaroli, with Dyke and Kugamiya and slightly older ones up front. This is where Hayden Veld has ended up, and one pit stop completed for everyone, but no one has made their second stop yet.
There's still a few laps away at least from starting to see those second stops. I would imagine as Mazzaroli and Sapstead exchange spots through turn 7 there. I would imagine first drivers to come in will likely be Brett Loxton and Kobe Williams, who are 22 and 20 laps into their stint respectively.
Good news, we're 19 minutes away from a chance of rain beginning, but it looks like throughout the entirety of this race window, the chance of rain is possible, but low. Don't expect we'll get any. If we get any, it's probably just sprinkles, but clouds could come across. Track could cool down a bit from here, because it has reached some pretty toasty levels at 38 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, these are the kinds of track temperatures that these drivers are used to, though. Awful lot of V8SCOPS rounds in the past have had track temperatures in the 40s, sometimes even the 50s at Bathurst, for example, which must have been a nightmare from behind the wheel. Fortunately, things a little more under control here at Portland International Raceway, especially for Zach Rattray-White, who set the fastest lap of the race in the lap previous to last, and is gaining on Rehan Lienage at a couple of tenths a lap at least.
Yes, it all sits well for Zach Rattray-White, and in a championship perspective, his main rival of Sean Campbell is down in 10th after a series of little errors and then an early stop. How much, now that he's in the slipstream, is he going to be able to take out of Rehan Lienage? Yeah, another very, very healthy chunk. They're pulling away from the rest of the field as they do this.
Yeah, they are. Some great pace from these guys. Low 113s, high 112s. It's exactly what you want at this stage. As the gap closes, Rattray-White may be thinking about a move at turn 7, but remember, earlier on, Rehan Lienage was saving a bit of fuel. Is there any possibility for Zach Rattray-White to now do the same thing, lapping behind Lienage? He's having looks in the entries to the corners, which suggests to me he's not interested in fuel saving right now, but it could be a possibility.
At the moment, the fastest lap of the race belongs to Zach Rattray-White. Said it recently, and he is the fastest car on track of anyone all through the field, which is impressive now that we've got many cars offset on different tyre ages and strategies and finding clean air and finding toes in other places. So this is pressure on for Lienage, but Rattray-White will think about how he plays this, because he's got a pit stop advantage coming his way, but he's also got the pace to take this lead on track.
Hopping over that curb at turn 2. Thinking about further back in the field, well, we mentioned Sean Campbell responding to his errors by going for a slightly earlier stop. He's managed to find his way back into P10 with that massive undercut that he got. So from 17th after going off at turn 10 to 10th spot now, Campbell's playing the middle of this race very well, as is Rattray-White, who's just passed Lienage at turn 7.
Smelt that one could be coming. It was a good exit off turn 2 in that chicane early in the lap for Rattray-White. Put him right behind Lienage, and then that is one of the best overtaking opportunities, is to surprise them at 7.
Yeah, super wide entry into this corner. You saw Rattray-White was carrying a bit more power, and he was able to keep the momentum going at the apex and just barely use any of the curb on the exit. Beautiful stuff. His tyres are only a lap younger than Rehan Lienage's are, but there's still plenty of pace in that Eclipse Camaro. regardless of the state of the tyres. So we now have 30 laps remaining in this 7th round of V8SCOPS for 2026. And it would appear some lapped traffic in the distance for our leaders. It's Terry Marsh, who's currently running down in 35th place. Of course, has already made one visit to pit lane for a compulsory stop and another earlier on for jumping at the start with a drive-through penalty. Marsh is going to be one of a few drivers who'll be hoping for a safety car later on to try and negate some of that disadvantage. Angus Lawford could certainly do with a safety car as well, though he's still managing to hold on to this top 5 position. I know I keep saying it, but I'm just really impressed by Lawford this weekend.
Yeah, he had that good qualifying, he had that good getaway, running in 2nd for a fair chunk. Now it's about managing the tyres across that first stint, this stint, and then looking forward towards the 2nd compulsory pit stop and what he can do to bring it home from there. Big gap behind him to 6th place is reassuring.
Yeah, 5 seconds back to Kane Kugamir, and he's still catching a whisper of slipstream from Emily Jones. So
you'd think he wants to stay within about 3 seconds of Jones based on their respective pit stop times at the first stop. So Lawford could still get that 4th place when it comes back around if he doesn't let Emily Jones get too far away in this stint. But it could be another long stint, and it was right at the tail of them where it seems like Lawford didn't quite have TTR spec pace.
yes, Project 36 Mustang was struggling, starting about 12 laps or so into the race. On board with Kurt Stenberg then, gaining 7 spots thus far. Currently, on current running position, joint hard charger with Dylan Gray. So he's got the world ahead of him here. 3 cars in particular. Latter, Campbell and his teammate Pepperell, James Chastaneuf and Sean Campbell a bit further in the distance at the front of this pack in the battle for 10th place.
No backseat drivers for Kurt Stenberg that we can see tonight.
Yep, on his own, but still has some company on voice comms apparently. We have seen him talking every so often on the Zoom feed here. Tiny bit of oversteer on the way out of the final corner, but he will still have the exit he needs to stay in touch with Kenneth Latter. William Brown and Hayden Veld aren't too far behind him either. Brown is only about 4/10ths back. There's the view as they... Oh, that's a lot of curb there for William Brown. I wonder if that was enough to trigger a slowdown. Doesn't look like it. Apparently, at the first chicane there, as long as you have 2 tyres on the red and white curb, you're good.
Didn't look. It's a high enough curb that it's not quicker to do that. It's very ungainly. It's not a flat curb that you're kind of cutting. Oh, a little bit of contact to Ken Latter from Stenberg as they went through 6, setting up for 7.
Yeah, Stenny's in a bit of a hurry. You see those marbles on the exit, or the outside of turn 7 rather. You definitely don't want to run wide now at this point of the race. It's looking like some railway tracks starting to form here. And have a look at the marbles through the S's as well. They are just peppering this circuit. We do hear that Kurt Stenberg's backseat driver is in the YouTube chat and says hello. We say hello right back to you as Sean Campbell makes his way into the pits for his 2nd stop here. Now, a short second stint for him. But remember, he took the majority of his fuel drop at that first stop, so this is going to be a really quick one for Campbell. He may just only need to cover the tyre change.
Well, what it's going to do is it's going to make his 3 stints 16, 21 and 27 laps. So each stint longer than the last. He has run a decent middle stint because he took that first stop so early, but it's still a long way to go, and he takes 13 seconds of fuel, having taken about 17 at the first stop. So 30 seconds cumulatively is what we might be looking at today.
Yep, seems that way. Campbell comes out in 32nd, but once again, he's going to be getting quite the undercut over drivers ahead of him. Meanwhile, replay coming in for Aaron Gilbert. This is coming into the final corners. And he gets on the brakes for turn 11, but it looks like maybe a mistimed downshift combined with just hitting that curb, getting on the marbles as well. Not ideal at all. And Gilbert lets Stacey Boyd by ultimately for currently 28th position. Campbell out of the pit lane and up to speed now. He's chasing down Stephen Banks. Will probably be making up a few positions on track rather than through the pit lane as he tries to fight his way back into the top 10 all over again. The battle for the lead is still mighty close, and actually, I've just looked at the last lap times for Rattray White and Leonage. They were exactly the same down to the thousandth.
A 1:13.352 between the both of them, so Leonage staying exactly the same distance back as he was the previous time across the start-finish line. Now that we've seen that about 30 seconds of fuel is what it takes, you think that Zach Rattray White has a 13-second pit stop in his future and Rehan Leonage has an 18-second pit stop in his future.
Oh, hang on, I just saw something strange. No, not important, but curious. Rehan Leonage's left side wing mirror just came off on the entry to turn 1. I saw it skipping across the tarmac. I don't know if Jay's going to see it on his end, but he will have a look as Russell Pepperell makes his way into pit lane now. And yes, on the entry to turn 1, Jay. Yeah, Pepperell will have, I think, a slightly quicker stop this time around, unless I'm getting my wires crossed. Yeah, 15 seconds for Pepperell there. He'll come out just behind Aaron Gilbert and Stacey Boyd as the battle continues here between Jamie Dyke, William Sapstead and Jordan Mazzaroli, held up a little bit behind Kane Kugamia, who has the oldest tyres of the lot.
Yeah, this group have been together since their last pit stop, so it's been a situation for the past 15 to 20 minutes.
Look at this. Taps the wall in the turn 1, and left side mirror says, whoop, bye-bye. Went into the turn 1 runoff at the end. That's how narrow the margins are here for our race leaders.
Very, very interesting. That's what makes it feel like a street circuit here.
Certainly does. And I mean, I guess you could say technically Portland International Raceway started out as a street circuit. It was initially made up of public roads that formerly comprised the city of Vanport, just outside Portland. Rain Campbell and Kurt Stenberg, the next two drivers to come into pit lane. And it's a nice quick stop for Stenny, 13.1 seconds, but even quicker for Rain Campbell, 12.9. And he'll maintain his position ahead of him. Jared Lamprey is going to come in for his second stop as well. As these guys out on track here battling for P6 still have yet to sort themselves out. There's so much pace from Dyke and Sapstead here. Mazzaroli, I think, has just decided to back off and let this play out ahead of him. Kane Kugamia is the one under pressure now with 18 coming up to 19 laps on that set of tyres. And Sapstead now looking at the back of Jamie Dyke. Maybe close enough for a run into turn 1 potentially, but not quite. He'll flash the headlights though to let him know he's still there. Drive-through penalty for Dylan Walker for contact with Stephen Banks back on lap 36. We weren't able to catch that one live, but we will try to bring that one to you as Hayden Veld and Adam Briggs come into the pits.
Sapstead's one of the quickest drivers in that pack, and this is Rehan Leonage's attempts at weight reduction.
Maybe making the right side of the car slightly heavier, which should maybe help stabilize the platform through the right-hand corners. Ah, dear. Well, a whole host of cars coming into pit lane that time. Veld, Walker, I believe, for the drive-through. Adam Briggs, Justin McLean, and Stephen Banks. So a lot of drivers from further back in the field making their way in. Dyke on the back of Kugamia still. It seems like Kane is one of the hardest cars to pass in this field right now. it's a massive gulf back to Angus Lawford. Remember how we were saying some time ago that the gap was 5 seconds? It's ballooned out to some 6 or 7 seconds now. This is the contact that got Dylan Walker the drive-through penalty. Stephen Banks, the car we're focusing on, and this was on the way into turn 6. Banks a tiny bit slower at the apex. Walker gets into him, and around goes the PER Mustang.
A little bit of contact at that loaded point. You're like partly on throttle. The rear of the car's a little bit light. Get a couple more pit stops. It's 22 laps to go, and drivers like Kobe Williams here just completed a 30-lap middle stint. So he'll be happy to get rid of those tyres, and he'll feel like it's not too far to go to the finish line after his second stop.
Yeah, 21 laps, which is about 8 laps less than what we completed in Split 2. So, now the battle continuing here. Mazzaroli watches on in the background as a big look from William Sapstead on Jamie Dyke. 2 laps difference between the ages of these tyres, and it looks like Dyke's going to come into the pit lane, and Kugamiya will too. Sapstead and Mazzaroli continue on for at least one more lap then, and they have some clear air.
With all of these stops going on, the question becomes, where does Sean Campbell end up? He wants to be inside of that top 10. He'd like to be inside of the top 5. But there's a bunch of those cars pitting right now that I think he's going to be pretty neck and neck with if it's quick stops for Dyke and Kugamiya.
Well, I'm monitoring those pit stop times there for Dyke and Kugamiya, and they are quick. 10.6 seconds. No, just falling a bit past that there for Jamie Dyke. 15 seconds, nearly 17 seconds for Dyke and Kugamiya respectively, and Campbell will clear them easily.
Dyke and Kugamiya are side by side on that pit exit, heading towards 1 on the outlap. Oh. Spicy.
Yeah, getting into the marbles a little bit there was Jamie Dyke. And Kugamiya will stay ahead, which must be frustrating Jamie Dyke to no end. He'd spent the last God knows how many laps stuck behind him. Meanwhile, James Chastaneuf coming out of pit lane, enters stage right, Hayden Veld, and they make contact at turn 2, but obviously not as big contact as before, but still. What? Okay, a little bit of a wiggle there coming out of turn 3. Shasti obviously dealing with the tyres being a little too cold there.
Exciting. Still Rattray White and Leonage in first and second yet to pit, but they've been pulling away from the rest of the field, which is very beneficial to Leonage. With that short first stop, he's going to be a 5-second longer pit stop than Ryan O'Sullivan this time around, and he's almost 5 seconds clear of Ryan O'Sullivan, which wasn't the case earlier in this stint. So Leonage's pace might be driving him into second.
Yes, indeed. You can see that, well, potentially that Eclipse car of Kobe Williams behind, who just come out of pit lane, may play a factor here. Williams with fresh tyres, Rattray White and Leonage now 17 and 18 laps into their stints respectively, so there is some extra pace coming from behind from what is technically a lapped car at the moment, but you never know. Kobe Williams could use that to unsettle Rehan. We're hearing as well that Hunter Salvatore has picked up an iRacing black flag. Maybe not for incident limit. Well, yeah, actually, we're hearing that it's not for the incident limit of 20, but potentially maybe didn't clear a slowdown in time or something to that effect, as into the pits comes Brett Loxton.
He's on his outlap, so maybe Hunter Salvatore pressed the button on the pit lane speed limiter too early.
That might be the case there. Looks like that was the case. As he left his pit box, he was doing 75 k's an hour, and as we've said a few times already, the pit lane speed limit here is 64 k's an hour. So, not ideal for Hunter Salvatore. We'll have to drive back through the pits again and lose more track position. But speaking of track position, Sean Campbell behind William Sapstead. Sapstead's just come out of pit lane right ahead of him. But Campbell, with fantastic pace right now, 1:13.6. And we are seeing some solid pace from him there. Goes for the dive. But there's contact on the way through with Sapstead, and here comes Jordan Mazzaroli, who managed to get ahead of Kane Kugamiya through the pit cycle. And now Mazzaroli sees a chance to get by William Sapstead as Campbell moves through. Oh, careful! That was a big look from Sapstead. He's willing to show the nose at places I would never even think about it.
Yeah, so that four-car group of Sapstead, Mazzaroli, Kugamiya and Dyke, they all took their pit stop, and they've ended up with Sean Campbell in the midst of them, now in front of them.
Fresher tyres, better performance under brakes there for Sapstead at that point, but Campbell manages to cover him off, only just. If he can gain some extra pace here through the right-handers, he'll be able to find a little bit more. Our leaders are in. Zach Rattray White and Rehan Leonage. Only leaves, I think, William Brown as the only car yet to take a second stop.
O'Sullivan had already stopped.
A couple others.
So Leonage versus Ryan O'Sullivan for second place should be very close on the blend on the exit of these pit stops.
So what we were thinking that Leonage was going to have the longest stop here versus Rattray White. So we'll keep an eye on those pit stop times. Here's Ryan O'Sullivan on the bottom of your screen as the battle continues between Sapstead and Sean Campbell. Defensive here for Sean. Round the outside for Sapstead as there's contact from behind. And Sean Campbell is off the circuit again, right as Kugamiya re-enters it. My goodness, some chaos going on there. But it looks like Rehan Leonage has managed to clear Ryan O'Sullivan by quite some distance.
You're trying to tell me Rehan Leonage has saved 4 seconds of fuel across this race? It's possible.
Yeah.
He might have to do a lot more saving later on. That's not a concern for these drivers. It's marbles, it's track position, it's door-to-door.
Oh, yes, it is. And Mazzaroli now at a disadvantage here, as up the inside comes Jamie Dyke. But Mazzaroli will defend the spot there. God, it's this whole pack here behind Sean Campbell just erupted into chaos over the last lap or so.
Absolutely has.
So with all of that, we're going to get another view of all of this. Keep an eye on Kugamiya, the silver car behind... goodness me, that was a big slide. Mazzaroli making a bit of contact with him as there was contact a little bit further up between Sapstead and Campbell. But now things have worked out in the favour of Sapstead, who is now about 1.2 seconds ahead of Sean Campbell.
I really would have thought Ryan O'Sullivan was going to come out of the pits ahead of Leonage, but he hasn't. But he's flying along right now, and new fastest lap of the race to O'Sullivan, net third in this race. Leonage second, Rattray White leading. Lawford back into that fourth place after Emily Jones had to take more fuel. And Emily Jones will be net fifth place at the moment. And that therefore puts Sean Campbell net seventh. His undercuts have been very powerful, but little mistakes at critical times like the race start and just before his first pit stop have really cost him the ability to contend for the podium, and it looks like he's going to leak a number of points to Zach Rattray White, who's been the form driver post about round 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's been tough for Campbell to keep up with that ever-growing momentum from Rattray White. We see Kurt Stenberg here racing with Kenneth Latta for P16. Russell Pepperell not far ahead of them, so there's potential for another spot there to get into the top 15. Latta, we believe, has just gotten through on Stenberg there, so we'll be waiting for a response from Stenny in short order, I'm sure. 15 laps to go, and it was at turn 7 that Latta made the move there to get into 16th place. Moving on up as we go to the replay here. Looks like, yeah, that was a nice dive from Latta. Very nice. It looked like he was going to be going for the outside there, but Stenny left a bit too much room to the inside and just allowed Ladder through.
Beautiful, beautiful switch. And after the pit stops, Leonage is looking feisty here. Fastest car on track, right behind Zach Rattray White. My question remains about Leonage's fuel because his combined pit stop time is significantly shorter than almost anybody else.
That was a big lift from him just then into turn 1. Gave up a little bit of time to Rattray White, but then gained it all back under brakes. So I think he is running to a number at the moment.
There's the stops, 1 lap apart at the first stop. In step on the most recent one, just that the total time in the lane at both stops significantly less. For Rehan Leonage, they're just waiting on William Brown to make his second stop of the race, and then it'll all open up for them, first and second place.
.112.5 on the previous lap for Rehan Leonage, only about 600ths off his ultimate personal best of the race. So his pace is good. As William Brown comes into the pits up ahead of these guys, they will move back into the top 2 positions. But yeah, some doubts over Rehan Leonage's fuel capacity there. Looking a bit further back to the battle for 8th, Kane Kugamiya making tracks on Sean Campbell. 113.3 on the previous lap for Kugamiya, playing a 113.7 for Campbell. And Sean has the oldest tyres in this pack.
They go past William Brown in the pit lane, so they all move up a spot. Campbell into 7th, Kugamiya into 8th, Mazzaroli into 9th, Jamie Dyke running 10th now.
And William Brown, for his troubles, comes out in 16th place, only 1 spot down from where he started. So looks like that strategy has worked out pretty well. And we're hearing from Rehan Leonage's race engineer, his father Laz, that apparently Rehan is completely fine on fuel. So,
and
yeah.
That's what I'd want my dad to say when I have my day in court.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. Keep an eye here on Stenny and Adam Briggs and the red and white Synergy car. Big move at turn 4, and that sends Stenny wide onto the marbles, and the return serve as Briggs went across him. Big hit into the wall, and we were hearing that there might be a safety car from that, but it looks like Briggs has managed to get it rolling again. Not ideal.
Yeah, got a bit of damage, not a lot of grip on the grass, but got going again. You've had the clouds come across the racetrack. Track temperature has dropped. No rain visible on the radar, but this final stint is going to be just a little cooler than the sort of first 2/3 of the race as the clouds come and the chance of rain remains at 3%.
It's a non-zero chance. That's what we got to keep telling ourselves. So, nice drop in track temperature that these drivers up the front will be welcoming. Briggs comes into the pit lane. He obviously got some hefty damage from that contact with Stenberg. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we're seeing the battle for 14th place here. Kenneth Ladder and William Brown. Fresh out of the pits is Brown, and looking to get back into his starting position of 15th. He ended up going very long in that first stint, and worked out for him here, having the freshest tyres in the last stint of the race. And he pulled the move on Ladder at turn 1. The slipstream is with him. He got a great exit out of the final corner as well. He's thinking about it. Ladder is not going to move to defend. And up the inside will go William Brown back into 15th place. Ladder has to get on the brakes a bit earlier than he expects just to stop himself from running into the back of Brown, but back up to 15th for William. Even
speed between first and second. Leonage still staying ahead of Ryan O'Sullivan running in third.
Liam Milner and Brett Loxton at turn 7. Milner gets over the curb at the edge of the corner, and that was quite a delayed bit of wheel spin there from him. Meanwhile, William Brown is really on a run now. He is looking to move past Russell Pepperell and get into 14th place, and Pepperell, with 14 laps done on those tyres, is certainly not going to give him the kind of pace that Brown is getting, but they got some lap traffic with Adam Briggs right up ahead of them. Will Briggsy go wide and let them go in the final corner, or will he wait? It looks like he's going to... He sort of half went wide there, but that has compromised Pepperell, and that's going to bring William Brown right into it as well. Could be another move at turn 1. 2 laps in a row for Mr. Brown here. Up into 14th now.
A hot knife through Western Star Butter. That's the difference, but now he's got to slow down.
Yeah, he did cut turn 2 a little bit, so that's not ideal for him. Look who's close together again. It's Hayden Veld and James Chastaneuf, who certainly aren't friends with each other after their incident coming out of the first round of pit stops. Both fighting over what is now 12th spot. Brown serving that slowdown that he got at turn 2 has been repassed by Russell Pepperell, but I would imagine that with the pace Brown has right now, it'll just be a matter of nailing the exit of the final corner and moving up the inside of turn 1 again.
Nice grip going into the chicane. Will Buchanan on the back of them here. Decent opportunity too. Pepperell with a bit of a slide off the final corner. Another good run from Brown.
Is this going to be enough for a dive at turn 1? Not this time.
Lift and coast.
Yeah. Oh, careful. Oh, that's a lot of curb at turn 2 again. Has he gotten another slowdown from that?
Seems he's okay.
Okay. So, seems like a pretty narrow margin there at turn 2.
That goes with his track length sometimes, doesn't it? The fastest line and a line that's off track can be a millimetre apart.
Yeah, and in the case of turn 1 and that guardrail, it's a millimetre's difference between the fastest line through turn 1 and a trip back to the garage.
That's for sure. So a couple of packs here, like this one led by Pepperell. Sean Campbell still feeling some pressure a bit further up the road with 3 cars behind him. Dylan Gray with 3 cars right in his mirrors. It's great racing at Portland, and I'd be happy to come back here again when it's wet or when it's dry. It's good racing.
Yeah, brilliant little track this. Plenty of room down the start-finish straight to send one up the inside at turn 1, but it looks like William Brown is content to stay in 15th for the time being. Again, lots of curb at turn 2. He's turning in just a little bit too early, I think, and that is compromising him slightly. All of that bumping and swaying over the curb, not ideal for him. As up the inside, here comes Brett Loxton on Mark Poynton, and Poynton is forced to cut turn 2 as a result. That may be a slowdown here, but Brett Loxton is not going to be able to get past out of turn 3.
Loxton's not shy to make a move.
Let's keep an eye out, see what Loxton does at turn 7 here. He's made moves here in the past, but he's not going to go for it this time. So, we'll see Jordan Mazzaroli and Kane Kugamiya chasing Sean Campbell still with the tyre advantage. But can they hold on to that? Kugamiya obviously very content to just kiss that curb at the apex of turn 2. It seems like the pace has sort of come back to Campbell. The clouds over the circuit have grown a bit thicker, I think, and track temperature has come down even further, down to 32 now, which is probably helping Campbell on those old tyres.
Yeah, you see that a brand new set of tyres gives you 5 or 6 really good laps. maybe a few more here because it's such a short lap. But then after that, they all reach kind of the same plateau. So the difference between 15 and 20 lap old tyres isn't as big as the difference between 7 and 2 lap old tyres, even though it's still 5 laps. So there's that. Your rival gets their new tyres, they've got fresher tyres than you, and if you can hold them off for 5 or 6 laps, then it all evens off, and that's the period of the race that Sean Campbell has gone through, and why the undercut is powerful, because there is no one to hold you behind. You're in clean air.
And clean air is what he has at the moment. 0.4 of a second faster than William Sapstead ahead on that lap. So Campbell is starting to make some gains. And something's gone wrong for Kurt Stenberg in the final corners. Adam Briggs, the driver he recently made contact with, streaking away in the distance. I wonder if something else has gone on between these two. Stenny into the S's, and that's a bit too deep. Loses it over the curb. Briggsy had nothing to do with that.
I think there was something earlier in the lap for Stenberg as well.
All right.
I don't know. I just heard him on the radio before what we just saw.
All right. That is a mystery yet to be solved. 5 laps to go for Zach Rattray White at the front of this field. And once again, those two leaders are neck and neck, only 0.02 of a second between them on times. Stenny and Briggsy. Turns out you were correct, David. I don't know about that. That looks a little bit how you're going between Stenny and Briggsy.
I think he thinks Briggs moved in reaction there in the braking zone at 1, perhaps.
Yeah, potentially.
Given they were a lap apart as well.
But looks like the incident between that's Jamie Dyke, car 160 is Kane Kugamiya, and car number 61 of Jordan Mazzaroli. Yeah, we did see some fighting going on between those drivers sometime before. I wonder if one of the little wobbles that we caught live are playing a part in that.
See this massively wide drag strip front straight lets Rattray White and Leonage first and second go by their lapped traffic.
Meanwhile, William Brown still chasing Russell Pepperell here. Tried to put the move on him at turn 1 a few laps ago, but turn 2 has not been William Brown's friend in this final stint of the race.
Brown still fuel saving. The 96 is still coasting 50 metres into the braking zone at turn 1.
Yeah, interesting. Appears to have not quite put enough fuel in to get to the end going flat out. Regardless, the fight ongoing now between Kenneth Ladder and Will Buchanan. Buchanan 5 spots down from his starting position, looking to make it only 4. This group all on its own at the moment. Quite a gulf back to Stenberg and Williams. Meanwhile, some confirmation there of penalty coming in for Jordan Mazzaroli. No, it looks like he's just getting a warning from race control. We had a bit of an evolving situation there with the race control decision in the background. So warning for Jordan Mazzaroli for his part in that incident. And race control is also reviewing the incident between Kurt Stenberg and Adam Briggs. And it's worth pointing out in that situation at turns 1 and 2, Adam Briggs was the lapped car. So potentially there's some justification for Stenny to say he was blocking me unnecessarily.
I think if they're on the same lap and battling, Briggs' move was late enough that it was a bit, hang on, are you defending or not? What are you doing? So just a miscommunication there if there was no intent behind it. About to be 2 to go for Zach Rattray White. This has been a really, really solid round for him so far.
Yeah, starting on pole and leading just about every lap that didn't have to be corrected for cycles through the pit stops. This has just been a fantastic year thus far for Rattray White. He was coming up through the ranks over the last couple of years and contending for podiums occasionally. The 2026 is really the year where he's started to show what kind of a driver he's really become after all those years of development. A very active driver as well as Rattray White. He races in so many categories of car, makes regular appearances on Wednesday nights every few weeks in the Australian Sim Racing Group Sprint Car Pro Invitational Series, where he also drives an Eclipse liveried machine, and is quite active in GT3 racing as well. Apparently, if it has wheels, Rattray White is keen to jet it around a racetrack at some speed. How about taking the final lap in P1 speed for Rattray White? Again, a low 1:13 on this lap. Looking nigh on unstoppable at this point. Rehan Lienage needs to do something special here to take the lead back, but with over a second between them, that's going to be hard to do.
Yeah, no worries for O'Sullivan in third or Lawford in fourth. And Lee Jones running in fifth. But Sean Campbell has caught William Sapstead. So sixth could still be on the cards here for Campbell. Maybe he needs another lap, which he's not going to get.
Yeah, looks like 2/10 gained on Sapstead on that previous lap from Campbell, and I think at that level of pace difference, he'd need more than a couple of laps to really secure it. But into the final corners now for our two leaders. Brilliant run from Rehan Lienage to grab those three positions and move up into second, but out of the final corner, celebrating already, is Zach Rattray White. Just an incredible performance here, and we've gone safety car free in both of our races today. Ryan O'Sullivan completing the podium in third. It's going to be a nice tasty Eclipse sandwich there. Kane Kugamiya and Jordan Mazzaroli, it's still on for 8th spot, but Kugamiya covers Jordan off into turn 11. Jamie Dyke looking on in the background is not going to be able to take advantage as Kugamiya gains 3 spots himself to finish in 8th, just behind Sean Campbell, who made up a little more time on William Sapstead there.
Buchanan wide into the marbles just behind the group that he was following, so didn't get past Ken Latta like he wanted. Didn't lose any positions from it though. Stenberg, Kobe Williams, and now Dylan Gray coming to the line, leading this group.
Yeah, nice gentle exit, and Dylan Gray pumping his fist to celebrate, getting into the top 20 after starting 33rd. He gained the most positions out of everyone in that one, and he should be very proud of that performance. Managed to keep it on the track where others did not, and he's been rewarded conclusively for his efforts. And with that, the last car to come across the line is Aaron Gilbert. With that, it's the official end of the race, with Rattray White bringing it into pits, potentially, or is he going to stay on the start-finish stretch and do some burnouts? Let's see what he ends up doing.
He stayed out on track. Maybe that's what 3 extra seconds of fuel gets you, is enough to do a cool-down lap and some burnouts.
Yeah, here we go. Smoke it up across the start-finish line. Another win on the cards for Rattray White, and race control making a decision on that, coming together between Briggs and Stenberg. Briggs with a warning for ignoring blue flags, but we're hearing that there's more coming from that. For the moment, give Rattray White his dues. It was a stellar performance once again, and with the problems that Sean Campbell suffered in this round, it's making this championship fight seem ever more in favour of Rattray White as we've reached the halfway point of the season, but we still have the Enduros to think about in just a couple of months.
Engine's dead now for Zach Rattray White. That's the blinking yellow lights. That means he's probably used all of his fuel on those burnouts, and well done. Just dominant and in control every aspect from qualifying through to the 200 kilometers and 2 pit stops.
Yes, takes the win by 0.6 of a second ahead of Rayan Leonage with a perfectly calculated fuel strategy from Laz there. Ryan O'Sullivan in third with Lawford finishing in 4th place. If you have a hat, take it off for Angus Lawford. This is his best solo V8 SCOPS result yet, I think. Gets into the top 5 with Emily Jones. William Sapstead finishes in 6th place ahead of Sean Campbell. And, in spite of us saying, yes, Sean Campbell had problems in that race, it doesn't take away from the fact that was a great recovery from him to get back into 7th ahead of Kugamiya, Mazzaroli, and Jamie Dyke.
11th place on the road, Rain Campbell. Hayden Veld in 12th. James Chasino 13th. Russell Pepperell in 14th. William Brown in 15th there, just ahead of Ken Latter. Will Buchanan running wide on the final lap, but not losing any positions to it. Kurt Stenberg 18th across the line. Kobe Williams 19th, and Dylan Gray in 20th.
Gaining 13 places there is Dylan Gray. In 21st place was Andrew Dutch. Brett Loxton finishes in 22nd place ahead of Mark Poynton and Liam Milner. And then it's Justin McLean, Stacey Boyd, Jared Lamprey and Aaron Gilbert, the last finishers on the lead lap. In 29th, Dylan Walker a lap down with Stephen Banks, Ryan Nielsen, Roger Forbett, Adam Briggs and Terry Marsh. Hunter Salvatore 2 laps down. Gotta say, everyone saw the checkered flag there. That's the first time that's happened in a while, I think, in V8 SCOPS. So, full power to everybody. That was fantastic. Everyone saw the checkered flag in both races, and we didn't see any safety cars. For a debut round, Portland has really shown that it's one of the best to manage, I think.
And we still saw lots of good racing, plenty of overtaking opportunities, the 2-stop strategy, some side-by-side through the fast final chicane, some exciting moves at turn 7, always turns 1 and 2, a massive commitment here. So it wasn't dull either.
No, certainly not. A very close race for the win. Ultimately won by Zach Rattray White, who joins us now. Starting from pole, leading the vast majority of those laps, Zach. It looked like the car was set up perfectly for this circuit. Portland choosing you as the first driver to smile upon in V8 SCOPS. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I quite like this track in this car combo. It's the lack of grip. Well, I don't know what the track surface is like. Maybe it's, I don't know, older than the sun, but it has negative grip. So I think it quite suited our setup, and I really enjoyed it.
Strategy was always going to be a big factor here with the short track length and the potential for safety cars, though we didn't end up seeing one. Rayan Leonage was fuel saving early on and working on getting onto the back of you in that final stint. But what do you think ultimately gave you the edge over him in the end?
I think our car was slightly better on pace regardless of the fuel, but I think just the fact that I had a bigger gap at the start, I played it super safe. Like, I think I put in like 3 liters too much fuel at that last stop. So nearly almost didn't work out because he came out right behind me. But I think even if he did decide to put some pressure on the last stint and get right up on my rear bar, I think I could have just held him off.
In terms of the championship, it wasn't the smoothest run for Sean Campbell, which gives you an extra leg up in the championship fight with just a couple more solo rounds to go before Enduros begin. Obviously you're still going to be looking over your shoulder for Sean, and you're expecting him to be right up there with you, but it must be nice to have a little bit of extra breathing room now.
Yeah, it's super good. I think just the goal of every round now is just to make sure I qualify up front. Unless you do what he did on the start and drop however many places, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Well, that's another win on the cards for you here in 2026. Zach, the floor is yours. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
yeah, the rest of the guys that are close for putting the faith in me to make a good car, and guess all the sponsors we got as well, like Core Temp Air Conditioning, Lutsu Drive Performance, 5-6 Sim Coaching, Bowler Media, and yeah, you guys in the broadcast as well.
Zach Rattray White there with the win here at Portland. We'll be catching you next round.
Thanks, guys.
And the driver who finished just behind him on track, less than a second in it, David Haynes, has got Rayhan Leonage in the box.
Well, a good race for you to move from 5th up into 2nd. A couple of drivers not getting away well off the standing start, and then just hanging with them. Great strategy and good long run tyre life for you.
Yeah, I was really surprised about the start. I thought there was going to be more cars in front of us, but that was, got a bit lucky with that, I guess. Strategy was, really good. Dad did the fuel really well, and I think us having really good, long stint pace really opened up options for us and worked well, so I was very happy with that.
Your thoughts of Portland as a racetrack after our first visit?
I wasn't exactly enjoying it initially, but once I did more laps, started to like it a bit more, and it feels much nicer on race fuel. Just doing laps, just trying to keep consistent. It's not that bad at all.
And the weather, temperature built, cooled off a little bit towards the end, and the chance of rain didn't quite arrive.
Yeah, I saw the chance of rain earlier on, I think in practice or something, and I was thinking, it could throw a spanner in the works in the ending, but didn't end up coming. But I think where it was, even if it did come, it wouldn't have made a huge difference. I think probably would have been still on dries because it was right near the end of the race.
Well, a solid performance from you. 5th in qualifying, 2nd in the race, just behind the eventual race winner. Who would you like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank AAA Excavation and Landscaping, Hybrid Racing Simulations, Gamma Flare, DHF Tires, RSW Graphics, Aramex Heatherton, Bubbles and Balloons, and Phoenix Driver Development, and Phoenix guys for putting in the work, Will and Andrew Dutch there, and Dad for the really good strategy. Finished with like half a litre left at the end, so that was very close, and Zach for the really good race.
Fantastic job. Excellent stuff from Rayhan Leonage and from Zach Rattray White here today. And, well, that brings us to looking forward to the next round, David. Winton Motor Raceway is going to play host to round 8. That'll be taking place towards the end of July. It's going to be a nice long sleep that V8SCOPS takes, but when it wakes back up, we'll be back in Australia at one of the quintessential V8 supercar tracks.
Yeah, very tight. Plenty to talk about the curbs there, and we'll be back at Winton. Strategy will be very, very important.
Oh, it certainly will. It's a tight, twisty bull ring, and there is barely any room to breathe around this place. We're looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are as well. A huge thanks to the drivers for putting on such a fantastic show, the crew at Aussie Online Gaming for administrating the event and stewarding and giving us the event to draw from in the first place. A big thanks to all of you as well out there watching around the world, whether you come from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch or Kick. It's been a pleasure having you. My name is Reese Gardner, David Haynes alongside me, and Jay Kennedy producing behind the scenes here on SimSpeed TV. Round 8 of V8SCOPS beckoning in about a month's time.